All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning on in to this live stream. I consider this to be a special show. We have our first interview guest dealing with Umar Johnson. And I've covered extensively Umar Johnson over the years. I've done extensive research. Um, I've spoken with people offline and online. They may have had personal experiences, firsthand accounts dealing with Umar Johnson. But one of the things I think is important to begin to do, and I hope to turn this into a series, is to start having former Umar Johnson supporters on as interview guests. And I can ask them specific questions and follow up questions. I think it may perhaps connect more people, especially people who are currently Umar Johnson supporters. We have a special guest today. And let me bring him on now because I have to adjust my microphone. So I'm going to bring him on now. Our special guest, and I'll give an introduction in just a moment, is Information Man. Information Man, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good to see you, brother. Thank you.
I'm doing. Oh man, thank you so much for tuning on. And we got quite a bit to get to. I figured we'd be here for like maybe an hour.
Hey,
I
no
have to
problem.
just. Okay, cool. I got. And
Yeah,
then,
man.
I have
I've got time.
questions. Okay, cool. I have questions, and then we'll field some questions from the chat room. But before we get into this, I got to adjust my microphone. So,
okay, go do your
if
thing,
you don't
brother.
mind, can you give us a brief introduction about your YouTube page, what you do there, etc.?
Okay, fantastic. Hey, everybody, I'm Information Man. People know me by that name. I've been on YouTube for some time. I have a couple of channels. I'm managing multiple channels on the YouTube streets, but my main channel that I began with was Information Man Show. And a lot of people know that particular channel for getting into political, social, cultural issues, hard-hitting issues. Oftentimes in the past, I would interview people, bring guests on, and interview other YouTube creators or people outside of YouTube, right? So I try to bring sort of a solution to problems that people often will debate about and have issues around. So if someone says, hey, young black men are not doing well in the community, hell, I'll bring a young black male or various black males on that are either in college, getting advanced degrees. I try to shadow the stereotypes with my channel. And of course, whenever there's very polarizing issues that are happening in the news, I always report on those particular issues. So my channel gives you a variety of different content, and I am known on the YouTube streets to call out foolishness of individuals that people have put a lot of stock into. And then right now, currently, everybody, I must make this announcement. I have revamped my second channel, which used to be called Information Man Speaks Podcast. That is now Info Media Reacts, where I react to various different things that are happening within social media, various clips that I put on the channel, and I respond to them. I get the audience to respond, and we give a critical analysis. Another channel that a lot of people don't know a lot about that I've endeavored in, and it's actually doing pretty successful, is I'm a big supporter of what's happening at CU or Colorado, Coach Prime and the players that he's bringing in, all that excitement that's happening. So I have a channel called Prime Sports Media, and I'm very well known within that genre of YouTube, and that channel's been going very, very well. So I endeavor in a lot of different YouTube platforms, and I'm glad to be here to talk about this particular issue, as I was a supporter, a behind-the-scenes supporter of Umar Johnson once upon a time ago. So, brother Honor, is your mic and everything, audio, doing well now?
Yeah, we should be good. So thank you so
Okay.
much, brother. That's the thing. He's professional when he does his production, so I can let him run the show. I go have me a sandwich. I go have me a sandwich. Come back and it'll be all fine. Now you brought up the term critical analysis. What does that mean exactly to you, and why is that important?
Well, I got to be honest with you, Honor. What I notice, particularly on social media or on the YouTube street, especially amongst our people, is that people just throw a lot of stuff out there and they don't back it up with facts, stats, or learned type of material.
Mm.
And I've been on panels in the past where I've unfortunately debated people about various issues within the black community. In the minute I hit them with the facts, the figures, the numbers, it gets as quiet as a rat pissing on cotton.
Yeah.
And so what I noticed on YouTube, people blur out things very, what do we call it? Very impulsively. And what I do on my channel, if I ever make a challenge about some issue or someone, I try to bring, as you always say, you bring the receipts. You back up what you're saying with the receipts. Therefore, nobody can come in and say, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's what I find is a problem on YouTube, in some areas of YouTube, where people sometimes don't back it up with facts. They just go with their emotions and they leave you with just that.
Yeah. And then to be able to take those facts and to analyze those facts critically to draw a conclusion.
Right. To draw a proper conclusion based on what's really happening. So like I had said earlier, you know, whenever I hear someone say, well, black women are doing this, or for example, the biggest argument on YouTube is that black women took the government check from the government and threw the black man out. I ran across an article, Honor, that I studied heavily, and I found out some things that originally these particular government programs were not originally meant for black women. Actually, it was for white women, white families, because they are the biggest users of the welfare system.
This is true.
And a lot of times there were black women who didn't even get the program. And then we forget, this is the area that people tend to forget, that even when some black women were receiving these sort of benefits, we knew that the government said you could not have a man in the house, or really what it was is you couldn't have another income in the household, right? An extra income to get those benefits. Well, we know that there were black women that were aware of this, and there were black men that were aware of this. And when the social work services would show up to your doorstep, the man would simply, you know,
disappear.
Leave, go somewhere. But the man was living there, but the woman had to make it look like there was no man there. Okay. In some parts of the black community, people know exactly what I'm talking about. But somehow we have black men who run with the narrative. And I always say, well, if we're supposed to be the leaders, we're supposed to be the warriors, why would you let yourself get knocked out of the household? Wait a minute. You still had kids that see, when you get into logic about it, then the whole narrative starts to fall apart.
Yeah,
and then when you find articles that break down the stats that was happening in the 1930s and 40s and 50s that combat some of the nonsense that is put out there on the YouTube airways, nobody can say anything.
All right. Well, I think this is a perfect introduction right there. Let me just real quickly, from your YouTube page, the Information Man Show attempts to make critical analysis of what's happening in our world today: news, social issues, cultural issues, politics, societal issues. The goal is to open one's mind, to give a critical analysis as to what's happening in our world today, to provide solutions and strategies. And this is so very important, especially when we get into the topic for today, which happens to be Umar Johnson. And as you know, I'm not going to be talking much here. This is your time, your experience, your expertise. I have a list of questions. I'll have follow-up questions. And before we get into this, I want to just share with my audience. Most people are familiar with you already. If you're not familiar with this brother, he's an outstanding man. And he's one of the individuals. There's a handful of these brothers online that have not only been inspiration to me, but they're on here doing great work. And this is one of the brothers right here. So thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Let me say to you, Honor, that I take a lot of pride in, I lived in the Bay Area. I heard you talk about, I think you met your wife in Berkeley. Actually, I worked in Berkeley when I was in college. I worked out of Berkeley High School, where I was involved in creating a program to help disabled and non-disabled children in the community of Berkeley to bridge the gap and bring those two groups of kids together instead of isolating. So I worked in that program for Berkeley Parks and Recreation when I was in college, and it also became a part of the master plan that I had to submit when I was in school, completing my degree. And so I've always had a history going all the way back to when I lived in the Fillmore area of San Francisco, working in the youth. They used to have, I don't know if they got rid of it, they used to have the summer program for youth where during the summer you could work. And I had a lot of experience working in community centers, working with kids. And so that was sort of what caught my attention when I came out of college. That was my focus. I wanted to work with kids, and I particularly worked with kids that had disabilities, either emotional, physical. I've worked with senior citizens. I've worked with, unfortunately, youth who have had some issues with the law in the community, kids that were kicked out of regular schools. So this is, I'm saying this to you to say these are the blueprints that actually opened up the door for me being impressed and captivated by someone like Umar Johnson. Because why? He often spoke about working with black boys and that we need schools that are geared. And you know why he was able to capture my attention on top of what I've already said? Because people like Umar Johnson, hear me out, everybody. They have this gift. And I've said this man has a sort of superpower. They have this gift of gab, but they have this gift of saying things that connect with you emotionally that can go all the way back to your own childhood or your own experiences. You know why? Let me reveal something, Honor. When I grew up, I had a very difficult time in the school system. I had teachers that were not of my persuasion, that I felt were racist. I come from back in the day. You remember this, brother, where they would actually try to discipline you in the classroom by turning your seat around against the wall. By today's standards, it would be abuse.
Child abuse.
I had teachers saying to my mom, he can't do this. He's got a learning disability. He's got A, B, and C. But my mom at home was working with me on the chalkboard, the whole 9 yards. I was doing things with my mom at home that they could not do with me at the regular school. And under my belief system, the educational system is set up as if it's a one shot for everyone. No, every kid learns at a different pace. My pace of learning was actually good when I could learn at a slower pace. So a lot of the teachers couldn't realize, like, how is it that he's reading at a slower pace, but his comprehension is out the charts? Because once I read something once and twice, man, it sticks with me. So you're looking and listening to someone who had a horrifying experience within the educational system in this country, whether it be from elementary school on up to junior high school, on up to high school. And this whole thing about how they put particularly young black males in a tracking system. And when I was in high school, I was into music. I played the violin. I thought at one point in time I wanted to go into computer, like programming and all these sort of things. And I noticed at that time they would steer me away from certain classes. And we're talking about we're talking about like 83, 82, 84. We're talking about early, a lot different than what it is today, right? And so who's that brother who you said yourself, brother, Dr. Umar is stealing his talking points? Dr. Kunjufu, who came out with the book about the miseducation or the destruction of the young black male, how the system. Well, I was a victim of the very thing he was talking about, which is why I gravitated to the things that he was talking about. And this is why I gravitated towards Umar Johnson, because Umar Johnson was using his same talking points. This is why I was saying is that people like Umar Johnson have this magical power where they're able to dig deeply into the core. When you look at an onion in psychology, you have an onion. And what happens with onions? As you peel onions, there's deeper and deeper cores in that onion. Well, people like him are able to go deeper into the core of your personal experiences. This is how people will gravitate to someone like Umar Johnson or anyone, because they always say something that you can relate to, that you had of experience, and what they say sparks those traumas, the PTSD, all those things. And what gravitated towards me is that he was saying everything that ring truth in my mind, which is how the educational system destroys black boys. So all of that ring truth to me, because I'm not only a believer that that's true, but I was a victim of it. And had to over. So this is how someone like Umar Johnson, you may say, well, how did he capture your attention, Info? That's how he did it.
I see.
And let me stop right there in case you have anything else you wanted to sort of.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you remember when you first heard of Umar Johnson? You remember what year it was? What was he talking about?
Yeah. Let's be honest here. I'm a victim of Umar Johnson by way of the barbershop. How many of y'all realize that a lot of us know of Umar Johnson because people were playing the Hidden Colors? This is the truth, y'all.
Yeah, the truth.
Yeah.
Everybody was playing the Hidden Colors videos in the barbershop. It was sort of an underground. That videos, those series got big.
Yeah.
For Tariq Nasheed through the underground viewership. It was word of mouth. So you be in the barbershop, they're playing it on the TV screen. Now you hear this brother talking these things that you feel that you were a victim of, and you're like, who is this brother? Man, he's hit. And then you got everybody in the barbershop reinforcing your excitement about what you're hearing about, saying, yeah, he right. That happened to me.
Information is.
All right. Yeah, he right. It happened to me. Because let's think about it. Black people, when it comes to pain, suffering, we have this group think where we'll all come together in our own trauma and we'll bond. It's called trauma bonding, right? People say that all the time on YouTube, right? So that's the first time that it hit me. Now, I know that the Hidden Color series came out with him in it, the first one, if I'm not mistaken, 2011. So therefore, when I was introduced to him by way of the barbershop Hidden Colors video, it led me to say, let me look this brother up and find out more about him, if there's other videos. And then you know what happened, Honor? Of course, then you discover someone like Asad Netta, where he, along with all those folks in New York or around the country who claim to be a part of the Black conscious community, they reinforce the character, right? They give him street cred. And that further took me down the rabbit hole, and everything that this brother was saying was resonating with me at that time. I'll stop right there if you have any other direction or questions you want to ask me.
You're absolutely right. The first Hidden Colors came out in 2011, and there is a correlation between that time period and the Black conscious community with people like Sa Neter, where Umar Johnson was actually being interviewed by Sa Neter. A lot has happened since that time.
Yes, sir. A lot has happened. Exactly.
What were your initial thoughts when you first saw Umar? What were your initial thoughts?
Well, once again, my initial thoughts is that Umar was charismatic, well-spoken, something that you often say in your videos that's on point. The way he presented himself, he was well-groomed.
Yeah.
Beard was well-groomed, or before his beard got, more bushier.
Yeah.
He spoke well. You didn't hear him talking about the cookies, crushing the cookies, pistachio, chocolate, vanilla, all this damn 39 flavors. I mean, the man should, you know what? Umar should get a commercial spot for 39 flavors.
That's right. he'll be perfect for that.
Right? So he wasn't talking this sort of pseudo out of the box. He was more straightforward. And then, of course, he always wore a suit, which I believed a lot of the reason why he wore a suit and he kept a certain professional look is because, as everybody knows, the man that he looked up to, right, is a Marcus Garvey.
Mm-hmm.
So you could tell he was trying to emulate a Mark. So from listening to Umar talk, that also connected me to the history of a Marcus Garvey. That made me say, let me go deeper, because I never did deeper research about Marcus Garvey as I did about Malcolm X, you see. And we know that Malcolm X, his parents were Garveyites, right? They were
Yep.
influenced by Garvey. He talks about it in the autobiography. So that's what caught my attention. His professionalism and the way he carried himself. All the stuff that we're seeing with Umar Johnson today, he's gone downhill from the presentation and the way he presented himself in the past. And I don't know why. I don't know if he's on something, some substances. I don't know. But I just know he's not the person that he was at that time. Something has gone downhill. So that's what caught my attention.
Okay. Now with the Umar Johnson saga, he's been around a long time. Most people don't realize that back in 2005, that's when he said he conceptualized this idea of FDMG, the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy for Black Boys.
Yes.
In 2005, that was in and around the time he put in his resignation letter to the UNIA, which is a whole nother topic for discussion. But this is to say that in 2005, he conceptualizes FDMG. Most people didn't start hearing about it until in and around 2014 with the St. Paul's College situation. When did you first hear about FDMG?
Well, I got to be honest. It's around the time that he did that promo video where he's walking around with the weird jeans on.
2014.
Right. That because I feel like Umar Johnson, for the most part, he used 2011, the Hidden Colors, that kind of put him on the map. And then the relationship he had coming on SciNet of TV quite a bit. I think he used that to galvanize his popularity, because that's back when he was going around doing speaking engagements where he's getting a lot of support.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of used that to further promote himself. I think that the video that he did at St. Paul's, when I look back on it now, knowing that it was kind of fake, that he was simply just using it to further add more street cred to his manipulation, because of making it seem like, hey, we're going to have a boarding school. I got to be honest, when I first witnessed him doing that, I thought that the brother was on to something. I said, wow, this is incredible. He wants to purchase this school, make it a boarding school, and he walks along the path, and you got the music, all, light and magic and music. It gets into your spirit, and you start to believe in what the man is saying. Up until that time, I had no reason to think that Umar was a grifter or a faker, because he still was maintaining a certain level of professionalism. Because remember, you didn't hear Umar constantly talking about women in sort of inappropriate ways, or the cookies. He didn't really go down. He didn't get into that path until a little bit after things start to fall apart. He was still focusing on what the goals was the school. So that still captivated me. And that began the journey of me saying, hey, let me support this brother, right? Whatever I can do. Now, I got to do another note to this situation, Honor. Because of living in the Bay Area, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the Berkeley Repertory Theater.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, he took a trip to that theater, because you do have a large Black community within Oakland and Berkeley and that whole segment of this part of Northern California. And that captivated me, because when he showed up in Berkeley, once again, large crowds, and he said everything that resonated with us, right? And I gotta be honest.
Did you actually see him out there when he lectured?
I didn't get a chance to see him at the event, but I ended up watching it after the fact. Okay. I wanted to go, but was not able to at the time that he was there. However, what I do notice is that it was electrifying. People were captivated. And I got to be honest to you, another reason why Umar Johnson caught my attention, because I got to be honest, when I was in college, you experiment with all sort of different things when you're in college as a young Black man in terms of this. You're looking, like I said, you're looking at a man who went through a horrific educational system where you didn't learn anything about Black history. I knew about Dr. Martin Luther King, the typical things that they teach you in school, but I didn't know anything. We didn't go deeper and deeper, right? So when I got to college and I started taking Black history courses, and I had professors like Noba Tashaka and Dr. Richards and all these different people, and Wade Nobles and all these people that were known, I started hearing things. So Umar was able to catch my attention because he was saying things that were similar to some of the things that I had learned in college and things that I did not learn in high school and coming up in the beginning. So I kind of got radicalized a little bit when I was in college, right? Now I'm in my Black Power movement stage. Also, I was a big Pan-African. I didn't tell people this. I was a big Pan-African as well. I remember studying it in school. So because I was already getting into my rebellious years and my attitude about white folks and the system, that made it also easy. It was almost like when people say there's a gateway drug, which is marijuana and liquor, the radicalization or the Black Power attitude that I developed and the system lied to me attitude was my gateway drug to someone like Umar Johnson also capturing my attention. I just want to add that as a side note.
Okay. So you talked about it briefly, just the idea of FDMG, that it sounded like a really good idea. And you gave some reasons why. Is there any other reasons that you can think about going back in time, not where things are at now, but going back in time that you could remember about the idea of FDMG that really made you feel like, hey, wait a minute, this is something I want to support?
Well, it all goes back to my educational experience being that for most part, Black children in our society really don't learn a lot about our history. It doesn't go deep enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so the idea that you would have a Black man having a school that would give Black children an empowering education that would deal with their self-esteem issues. Because I believe personally, Honor, that Black people, one of our problems is that we do have a self-esteem issue.
Yeah.
Which is why you'll see Black people who will wear fancy clothes and they'll overdouse themselves in materialisms when in fact they really may be in pain deep inside the core of who they are. So Umar Johnson offering that sort of education, in some way, the little kid in me said, damn it, I wish I had something like that. You see? And like I said, because I was a person working with youth and was concerned about Black people, Black youth, Black people in general, to me, it was a no-brainer that if this brother is offering something that could be a good impact to our communities, and maybe he could turn this into something like where he could expand this into other schools across the country, why wouldn't I not want to support this when we give our money everywhere else? So I think that was the buy-in for me. And on top of that, as I said before, I had a little bit of that Pan-African. I had a little Pan-African in me too.
Did you go so far as to donate to his crowdfunding campaign?
Right. So what I would do to donate, first of all, I was a supporter by listening to the content that he put out. And then when he would say, hey, send money here, there, whatever, I would give a little bit of money here and there, whatever I had. Keep in mind, I was in college struggling myself. So it's not like I gave this man, I'm not going to sit up here and say I've gave this man a gazillion dollars. But like anything, I tried to contribute when I could, as I was believing in the message. Okay. So, it could be $5 here, $20 there. That stuff adds up over a period of time.
That's right.
If you're following a person for a number of years and you're giving $5 here, $3 there, 20, 25, 30, 10 here and there, that can add up over time as you are believe, should I say, in this individual.
So at what point did your belief in Umar begin to wane? Was there anything in particular that took place, or a number of things that took place?
You touch on a lot of these things in your videos over the last few years, but one of the things is that his message started to get diluted. As his message started to get diluted into other areas that I didn't think had anything to do with the mission of a school, as he became more repetitive in his rhetoric, that's where my critical thinking skills start to kick in. Now, I got to be honest here. I think that one reason why I start to depart from Umar is that what happens to people when you're in college or when you start to grow up and mature, you start to get out of a phase, which is as I was moving out of this phase of, oh, I'm a Pan-African, right? Because you start to learn more things. So as I was getting out of my phase with this, oh, I'm gonna get the system. As I got out of that phase, his message started to become sort of, it wasn't growing. There was no growth. And that's what usually happens with people. As you start to grow, gain more wisdom, and you start to think more critical, you start to realize, man, he keeps repeating the same message, but yet I'm not seeing any results. So once his message started to get diluted, and now he starts going down the pathway of if you wear your hair, if you don't wear your hair natural, then you can't be a part of this. I'm going to open up schools in Africa. I'm going to open. Once he starts saying all of that, then remember I told you, Brother Honor, and you've already talked about this. I start watching him on that radio show that he comes on. He keeps arguing with people. Arguing with women in particular, while at the same time saying how we should respect the Black queen. But yet this man is arguing with women, arguing with radio hosts. All of that, I took all that information and I started to say something is off here. And I noticed that the more people would press him as it relates to, well, how much money you've collected, what is your goals in terms of getting a school, and you start hearing about people offering him opportunities, such as the family that was going to offer him land, then it starts to spark in my mind that something is not right here. He's off message. He's getting into arguments with people. Now he's coming up with all these sort of requirements that if your hair is this way, you can't be a part. If you don't do this, you can't be a part. Then he kept saying things like, only my donators know information. I'm only transparent with them. Yet I didn't know what the hell was going on. It began to be more like a cult, Honor. It begins to morph into cultism, right? The coded personality, in which the man is just basically saying, do what I say, but don't tell me what to do. Do as I say to do, but don't question what I do. And that's how Umar began to slip into this area where he was becoming more concerned with his popularity than the substance of his message. And that message started to deteriorate over time. And then when you hear things about, I'm related to Frederick Douglass and blah, 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 blah. And you begin to find out that very soonly becomes a lie when the family of Frederick Douglass, God rest his soul, comes out and they say, this man is not related to our family and we want him to stop repeating this to people on the airways. And then when he continues to make a lie and somehow fabricate more lies about being related to Frederick Douglass, even though the family, who would know better than the family that this Negro is not related to them, then you start to put that in your computer brain and say something doesn't make sense here. Because once again, when you follow someone and you're a little bit younger and you're now developing wisdom over time and you're getting critical thinking skills, then you're beginning to say, he's doing the same thing that he's doing when I first discovered him. He's not growing. He's not expanding as a man, let alone growing in the pathway of wanting to work with or help Black boys. He's spending more time arguing with people. And then this is what I wanted to say to you. Then I see a video where he's telling two brothers, you know the video, that when I get this school built, and at that time he didn't have anything built, when I get this school built, I'm going to have to leave the country because the government's going to come after me and they're going to try to stop me. And then when you put common sense together, the government's not afraid of Umar Johnson. You know why the government's not afraid of him and anybody like him? They're not afraid of him because he's stealing and robbing, or he's grifting and lying to black people. Why would the government be concerned about a man taking money from black people to build a school when they know that he ain't going to build nothing, when they know that he's simply grifting? Why would they be concerned about individuals that do that when they would be like applauding and saying, yes, do exactly that. This is why he's been able to do what he did. When you look at someone like Jay Morrison, think about it. The government didn't shut Jay Morrison down per se. There was no government or federal feds that came in and said, Morrison, you're ripping black folks off. We're putting you under federal indictment. No. He actually just basically mismanaged everything. Because I'm just saying this, honest. To me personally, this is my personal opinion, I don't think the government is concerned about black charismatic characters who are literally grifting from the black community. They would be more concerned with someone like a Malcolm X or a Dr. King. You know why they were concerned about Dr. King? Because he was changing public policy. He was changing people's thinking, not only nationally but internationally. They were meeting with diplomats, especially Malcolm X when he went over to Africa, when he went over to Africa and the Middle East. Not once, everybody, but he went twice. That's when you become public enemy number one. Dr. Umar Johnson is not dangerous to the status quo. Yes, he's gone over to Africa, but ask yourself, what important diplomats has Dr. Umar Johnson met with in Africa that makes him able to change public policy both in Africa or in America? We know the Negro went over there and was playing with monkeys on his shoulders and stuff like that.
He was. Yeah, he was. He sure was. Let me say this.
He will tell you and me that they're after me, folks. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've been on one here.
No, it's all good. Thank you so much for being here. Everyone in the Cook Crush chat, thank you for being here as well. I do have Information Man's Cash App there. If you guys would be so gracious as to support, if you're enjoying the show, we always want, I know you guys are very supportive of me. I would hope that you would extend the same level of support to Information Man.
I want to shout out somebody. I want to shout out everybody in the chat room that's here watching, all 818 so far. I appreciate you all coming over. And I want to shout out my man, Jonathan Kidd. He's a mod on my channel. Jonathan Kidd has been supporting almost at least two of my channels pretty heavily, coming over and listening to me talk about various issues. So Jonathan Kidd, brother, thank you for your continued support. And anybody else in the chat room who decides to come over and support both channels or either channel that you like. So I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you again, everyone inside the Cookie Crush chat. I wanted to say, just as a point of information for people, if they're doing any research, the interview that Information Man was referring to, Umar was being interviewed. He was saying that he was going to have to flee to Africa after he opens up the school. That was with the Good Twin and Bad Twin. They have a podcast. They have a podcast on YouTube. If you guys haven't seen it, it's definitely, you should check it out. In fact, if I remember, I'll put in the show notes, I'll put a link to that for you guys. You guys can check that out. Critical thinking, just real quickly, if we can do this real quick, then we can move on. You brought up quite a few issues that came up when you start to kind of fall away from your support of Umar. And I can see it so clearly as to why these things would cause you to at least pause, especially as a critical thinker, to say, wait a minute, something's not quite right here. I'd like to throw some of these back at you. And if you can just explain why in particular, or if you can break it down from a critical analysis perspective, why these particular issues are relevant for someone who hears them coming out of Umar's mouth, and it's a total divergence away from, he diverts away from the goal of opening up a school to quote unquote save black boys. One of the things you brought up, and this is one of the triggering topics that Umar uses, is the natural hair, black women having natural hair. Why is that, from a critical analysis standpoint, why did that strike you as being odd or something that would cause you to take a step back?
Well, it's odd because we know that black people in general have all different hairstyles, have all different experiences. And this is another reason why we know that the Umar Johnson doesn't have critical thinking skills himself. This is something that I know personally. I know if you go back and you look historically about how black people and particularly black women are very sensitive about their hair as it relates to beauty standards. And we know that the beauty standards in this country has been centered around white women. And black women at one point in time were looked at and said to be ugly, unattractive. And remember, there was a time when black women were wearing makeup that really wasn't meant for them, but meant for white women. If you go back and look in the 60s, I can look at my mom's pictures, and they had the white eyeshadow and all those things in the 60s. The makeup didn't fit the way black women look. You have what we call, unfortunately, you have some black women, I don't say all, that may be trying to emulate that beauty standard of the blue eyes and blonde hair. So to me, for Umar to be someone who's supposed to be a psychologist, licensed, you would think that he would be more sensitive when he says that, understanding the history of hair, especially hair as it relates to black women and how black women are portrayed. Meaning, you would think he would be sensitive to know that there's a lot of black women who, if they go to a corporate job, would not be allowed to wear their hair naturally. It's not until you have the Crown Act that was passed in California. If anybody knows what the Crown Act is, the Crown Act is an act that was passed in California a couple years ago that said you cannot discriminate against a black person who wears their hair in cornrows, braids, or what have you, that you cannot discriminate. Because sometimes the hairstyle that you wear could be a representation of your culture and your religious beliefs. After that, New York City piggybacked off of the Crown Act law that was passed in California. They piggybacked and implemented the same law in New York, so you can't discriminate. So when Umar Johnson says that, he's not being, in my mind, this is part of critical thinking, he's not being sensitive to the fact that black women live in a world where they're being pressured under the beauty standards of white society and corporate America. So there's a reason why black women have pressed their hair and there are some black women who want to wear their hair naturally. Just because a black woman doesn't wear her hair natural, does that make her any less, as he likes to say, African, Pan-African, or any less down for the cause? And this is another thing too, when you use critical analysis. Why would he want to alienate a certain more black people who could give him a donation? We already know that we're a small, well, they say we're 13% of the population in America. I tend to believe that we're bigger than that. But anyway, what I'm basically saying is, if we're already a small population, maybe, in this country, why would you want to divide black people based on how they wear their hair? Because I'm going to be honest with you, going back to my college days when I was a rebel riser, I knew dudes in an organization that I was trying to form in college. I thought we were going to be a black...
It's all right. Go ahead.
I thought we was gonna be Black Panther's return, right?
Okay.
We were trying to make this. I connected with some dudes that, these brothers were cool brothers though. They wore locks, and these are the kind of brothers that would say, "Don't join the white man system. Don't join the military. We're gonna fight against the system." Blah 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 blah. And if for a footnote to let people know where I'm coming from, if you do a Google search, there was a big protest at San Francisco State back in the early 90s or mid 90s around a mural of Malcolm X. I knew the brother that made the mural. He made the mural reflecting the mural that Malcolm X was against Zionism. When that mural went up, all hell broke loose on San Francisco State's campus around this mural. There was a big protest. You had Jewish students out there. It was a big protest. One late night, the campus police came out and because they wanted to paint over the mural, and we said, we're not going to let you paint over the mural. And they broke out with the riot gear and everything. If you go back and look that up, San Francisco State, controversy over Malcolm X mural, I was involved in that situation. So what I'm saying is I was running with a group of guys who were sort of into the Black Power type of attitude. But what I noticed about them that I found problematic is that sometimes you can't be fooled by people just because they have locks in their hair or they wear African colors and medallions and think that, oh, he's more black than me because he's presenting himself this way. I found out that one of the dudes was married, had a white wife or girlfriend. Then the other dude who had locks and was talking that black power type stuff, just like Umar Johnson, he ended up joining the Navy.
Okay.
And then cut his locks off and came back and joined the Navy. And I'm like, what happened to all the black powers talk? And that made me realize very quickly, some of these people just be talking, right? And what it also made me realize, you can have somebody who has a conservative look. They can have a haircut like Dr. King. They could wear a suit, penny loafers, and they could be more radical than the person who has the outer exterior of colors on. So you can't judge a person by hair and clothing. This is why that's a critical analysis for me to realize that what Umar Johnson is saying is bullshit. Why would you sit up there and say, if you're a black woman and you're not wearing your hair natural, you can't be a part of this? That's foolish. That black woman might be more down than the black woman who has the locks in her hair.
Real talk. Real talk. You also brought up Umar. He's extremely argumentative, especially when people ask him or they press him about the school. You brought up the transparency issue. Before we get into the transparency issue, why is Umar's demeanor of being so argumentative? Why does that kind of raise a red flag for you, especially within the context of opening up a school for black boys?
I'll quote my man Neely Fuller Jr. It's non-constructive conversation. Arguing with people in a circular matter is non-constructive. You should be having conversations with people that either lead to a solution, that leads to our benefit. Other than that, you're just talking, blowing off hot air. It bothered me because I've never been personally an argumentative person. I've always been a solution-based person. And another reason why it bothered me is that some people may not like what I'm going to say. Some people may like. I joined a black fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. Been around for over 117 years. And you may be familiar with this community. We used to do community work over in the Sunnydale Housing Project area right next to what we call Cow Palace in San Francisco. The Cow Palace may not be there anymore. And one of the things that I liked about being a part of this brotherhood at that time is that the brothers always stress being under control, being disciplined, being focused on a solution. So while I'm getting involved with an organization that was solution-based, I'm listening to a man who's not solution-based. While I'm listening to a man talking about working with black boys, but I hardly ever see him working with black boys, here I am actually working with black young men and actually involved in getting them into college, mentoring them. We have a program called, not to shout out here like this, but I got to be honest, we have a program called Project Alpha. And Project Alpha was a program in which we deal with young black males as it relates to their responsibility if they impregnate a young lady. We talked about abstinence. We talked about using contraception, but mostly, what do you do if you impregnate a young lady? So the whole organization, we were centered around the betterment of black men, the betterment of our community, scholarship, and the promoting young black males to go from high school to college or trade skills and what have you. So as I start to peel away from this whole black power talk and engage with black men who ain't about talk, this is, I know people have all their various opinions about fraternities and what have you. And, everyone can have their opinions, but I need you to understand this brotherhood that I was a part of, I was actually seeing young black men, 20, 23, young, doing things more than I ever seen other black men older, and doing more than I ever saw Umar doing. So that also helped me to realize it's not about talk, it's about actually what you are doing. When my line brothers, we had a project that we had to put together, and we actually came together, brought our resources together, and created programs that could help youth, particularly in the Sunnydale Housing Project area, which we later on, brother, and I'm very proud of this, we turned it into a boys and girls club. We also had another building that we turned into a program working with youth coming out of juvenile. So what we did is we were involved with San Francisco Educational Services, where we would go to these various schools, tutor the youth, and then we turned this vacant building. We petitioned because as my brothers were graduating and getting into, graduating and getting into their careers, they were able to use their resources to create things. This is what Umar doesn't understand. You can't be an island to yourself. You must network with other black people to get things done. So we were able to network with other black people and those in our organization to give this community a program that they did not have. And check this out. We also were able to create jobs. So eventually the program was turned over to the community to run. Another thing I'm proud of, you had gang members, people that you would call street organizations in this community. They recognized what we were doing. They respected us because we didn't come in preachy like an Umar Johnson, just running off at the mouth. And they told, I never understood, nobody ever messed with our cars, never broke into our cars. And then I found out because we were working with their nieces, their nephews, their family members. And they told everybody in the community, don't nobody mess with the alphas, don't touch their cars, don't do nothing. Because they saw what we were doing and we didn't come in the community talking about, we're going to stop the gangs. No, we just did the work. What I learned from that experience when I look at Umar is that he's all talk. He's all polarism. He's all arguing. We weren't arguing with anybody. If we had came into that community and been preachy towards them, we would have never been able to do what we were able to do.
There you go. There you go. And I want to throw one other thing back at you that you brought up. I think it's one of the biggest issues when it comes to Umar and this idea of FDMG. Yes. And that's the issue of transparency as it relates to the financial aspect. Why is transparent as a donor, someone who sent this guy money? Why is transparency important?
Well, for me personally, it was important. It became important down the line because I didn't have a lot of money. I really didn't start making any real money until I graduated from college and started really working in the real world. Other than that, when I was in school, I was working part-time jobs and I was living at home with my family through my studies and trying to, work on my future career. So it became important to me because here I am giving this man money that I probably really in the long run couldn't afford to really give when you add it all up. And then the question is, I'm going to use this quote here. You judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, meaning there should be a result of you giving and just like watering a plant. And it seemed like the more people give Umar Johnson, the less you see the seeds sprouting and growing. You see the man talking and asking you for more, but you don't see the end results. And most importantly, he never gave you a receipt of this is how much I collected. You've said this before. I think more people would rock with Umar if he was more transparent. If he would simply have a website set up, have some way of saying, this is how much we collected this month, this is how much we need to get to our goal of putting a new roof up, right? HVAC, I'm tired of HVACing. Right? You guys gave me this much money in May of 2014 or 15. This is what we collected. This is how much I put in the bank for this account. Here's the receipt. If Umar did that, he would have gotten maybe more support and he would have gotten a lot of his detractors off his back.
Yeah.
Because at least you would see that, wow, he really has managed this well. He's got bank statements. He's breaking down with a graph or he's showing you receipts of where money is going. And then now you know he's not spending the money on himself. Another thing, I got to say this before you ask me another question, brother. One of the things that broke the camel's back for me is the infamous video in Japan where he's in the water and he's coming up. And he's swimming and he's laying in the back.
Yeah.
That video really showed me that this man was living off the money. That this man was was more concerned with being social media popular. And that he was becoming intoxicated by his popularity.
Yeah.
Which began in its origins with the Hidden Colors.
Hidden Colors. You're right.
And he became, and I think that, let me just say this, this is not to punch down on black people, but this is the truth, honest. Black people, one of our problems is that we have a Messiah complex.
Yeah.
And we want to believe in someone that will save us and get us to the promised land. And why are we like that? And this is no shade to people that are Christian, but the fact of the matter is black people in America in general are religiously oriented. Yeah. We grew up as either a child listening to our parents take us to church, listening to a preacher or a preacher's cadence. Where do you think Umar gets it from? What do preachers do? They repeat. I tell you, open up your book. God says, and God says. So we get oriented and culturally conditioned to that cadence of the repeated preacher. And what do our parents do who become religiously oriented? They begin to repeat the same cadence at home with us when they're spanking us, when they're disciplining us. And then they'll put in there, I don't want to hurt you, but you're not being godly. So they bring the religion in there. And then when we go to church with our family members, it's reinforced, the repeated cadence. So when you listen to someone like Umar Johnson or any of these shysters, it's a familiar cadence that's already buried in your self-conscious, your unconscious, and self-conscious. You begin to relate to it because you were already traumatized by it. I'm sorry, folks. You were already traumatized by it as a child. When you heard that cadence over and over again, and when your parents repeat it to you when they're disciplining you. So when Umar shames black people and says, I could have had this school open if y'all would have gave me more money. That's the same thing.
Tell the truth.
That the preacher says when he says, I look at the collection plate today, and it's a shame that I hear more change in a collection plate than I do hear the dollar, the $20. And you know that God's house need a repair, needs this or needs that. You know I'm riding in a raggedy car. So they play on your emotions, your spiritual emotions, or pimp you spiritually with that repeated cadence. And Umar Johnson says the same thing when he says, I could have had this school, but y'all Negroes. That's the same thing that certain, not all, but some preachers do. Okay. Now I'm out of the era of having friends and people that I know who lost family from the Jim Jones era. Matter of fact, I could walk past that church when I was a kid. I lived in the Fillmore area for many years of San Francisco, West in the District, they call it. And so black people were fooled by a charismatic white dude. And for some reason, we are acceptable to these kind of individuals because for the most part, we're looking for someone to lead us somewhere. And spirituality has been the backbone of the black community that they say has gotten us through. So we are acceptable to people using a spiritual tone.
Umar does the same thing.
Yes. Matter of fact, Umar is a victim of the very thing that he puts on black people.
Can you explain?
Well, there's something called transference and countertransference.
Yeah.
And what happens is that when I'm at work working with the kind of guys that I deal with, I have guys that have gotten angry with me. And I'm wondering, like, why is this guy getting angry with me, right? Well, I realized that I could remind him of someone in his life that he did not like, that may have did him wrong, or might have tried to set him on the right path. And so it can become a triggering effect. I submit that Umar, and you said it yourself, that maybe his father was not there for him. Maybe his father bullied him. But I think Umar is a victim of the same thing that many, or let me not say many, that some black people are victims of when it comes to religion, when it comes to the way you're disciplined growing up, and the expectation and being blamed, the blame game. I could have this if you had a that. And I think Umar might have been that type of kid who was sort of picked on, blamed for this, blamed for that. And so what people normally do is you pretty much project that which is within yourself onto those who look like you. It can be termed as self-hate. When you have self-hate, you turn on your others, because he turns on black people and throws us under the bus because he's actually hating on that which is himself that he hates. And his amount, let me touch on this. He has this great imagination where he says, we're going to have an FMG helicopter. We're going to have a horse ride and all of this. You know where you know where he gets this from?
Childhood imagination.
Right. But we have to we have to focus on this part of it, don't Honor? I bet you there was a generation of young people across the board, and particularly black kids, who were latchkey children, who their mothers or daddies, or they didn't have a daddy in their life, but the mother had to work. So you had to come home from school with your key, open the door, or maybe warm up some soup. And what did you do to entertain yourself? You watch television shows.
That's right.
Listen to where I'm going with this, folks, the psychology of it. Most of those shows were promoting in your brain fantasy. So if you grew up watching Wookie Wanna, what's that? The Chocolate Factory guy. You grew up watching the Flintstones. You grew up watching Fred Sanford and Son. You grew up seeing the Monsters, right? Addams Family. But this is another thing. This is how black people were psychologically impacted. Most of the black shows showed black people struggling.
Good times.
Most of the white shows displayed white people having it together. We were also impacted psychologically by different strokes. White people taking in black kids that were somehow abandoned, or somehow they lost their mother. But no father is talked about in the picture. While being a latchkey kid and watching these shows, you begin to develop what? The fantasies. I contend that Umar talks in this fantastic manner because these are things that he grew up and was exposed to, and he has this fantastic imagination. And I think deep down inside, in his imagination, when he talks about FDMG, in his mind, it's almost like he wishes that in his imagination that FMG would be this everything for all people, and that we'll be able to give you horseback riding. You're going to have this, you're going to have that, because he was exposed to these fantasy things through watching television. Television is very powerful. There's an old saying, he who controls media controls the mind. He is a byproduct, as many of us are or have been, of what you see on television, and this is what he's projecting in these fantastic statements about at FDMG, our kids will know how to fly planes. So the bigger the expectation, the bigger he makes you notice this? he makes the expectations bigger and bigger, but the bigger the expectation, the less the results.
Yeah, more impossible it becomes. Yeah.
Right. But you have to think about, where does he get these fantastic, and I contend that he is the victim, like many of us, of being a kid who was watching television and seeing all these things that he probably dreamed of having himself. I'm saying to you that when Umar talks about this school and all this fantastic stuff, he's really talking about what he wished he would have had as a child growing up himself.
I totally agree. You spot on with that. You spot on with that. And it's movies too, because there's videos where he's talking about going to the movies, and his mom and grandmother would give him $1 or $2 to go watch movies, and he would be there for hours, not just one movie. He'll watch 2 or 3 or 4. And I said many years ago that the concept and idea of FDMG is not to save black boys. It's Umar, in his imagination, he's trying to create this to save the black boy in him.
Yes.
That ties to exactly what you're saying here. Yeah, that's fantastic.
You know why I know he comes from that era? Because I remember, I don't know what the total age range of people in the chat room, but let me just say this. How many people in the chat room remember a time when you could go to a movie as a kid for what, $3, $2.50, and you didn't get one feature, you got double feature. And I remember going to a theater when I was a kid in San Francisco where you would get 2 features, and then before they go to the next feature, they would have an intermission where someone would get up on a stage. This is old school. And they would have one of those wheels, and they would do an auction with they would tell you to hold on to your ticket. And if you had a certain ticket number, you would win a certain prize, like a TV or something, or you would win popcorn. And I remember I had a number and I got popcorn, and they would say, all the kids who have this number, go and get your free popcorn. We're talking about old school stuff here. And Jonathan Kidd said he remembers that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, well,
I feel that Umar is a byproduct of some of that stuff too.
Yeah, I totally agree. You're spot on with that analysis right there. Absolutely. And I can pull up a video now where Umar, I call it Little Jermaine, where he's given like a backstory. I'm sure you've seen it, and he's talking about going to the movies and seeing Rambo, and he turns into like this little child. I think I played it yesterday, and it's a perfect example of what you're saying here. Perfect example. So there's maybe 4 or 5 more questions that I have for you. I know we're already at the hour. Are you good on time?
Yeah, I'm good on time. I'll try to keep my statements a little bit shorter.
No, please. No, just take your time. If it ever gets to the point where you got to go anything, just let me know. Give me like a 5-minute warning. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Real quick, I just want to thanks everyone inside the chat room for being here. Thanks for the
everybody
mods.
In the chat room's been great.
Yeah, and they've been very supportive. They're enjoying you. There's people sending super chats. I want to just say I do appreciate the super chats, but I put Information Man's Cash App information on the screen. And if you can direct any type of financial resource that you would like to send to this show, just send it to him. And then I'll be sure to, towards the end of the show, to answer or ask any questions you have I'll ask those questions to Information Man, or any comments you want me to read. I'll do that there. So, but let me read the ones that did come in. I do appreciate it. I'm not saying I don't, but let's try to redirect that money towards this brother. So Adora says, repetition tune gets on my last nerves. Yeah, that's another thing, brother, that maybe you can speak on, because I'm sure you recognize that earlier on when you would listen to Umar, the repetition thing wasn't there. Whereas now he can't stop it. Can you explain that?
Well, it coincides with my statement about, the preacher. But another area I want to go into is that there are studies about the power of suggestion. The power of repeating a cadence. That's almost a part of brainwashing, right?
Yeah.
But also, let's not because I'm going to be doing a video on this character that I'm about to bring up here. Let's not negate or forget that Umar Johnson has also been influenced, like Polite, by one Malachi York. And I'm not saying Dr. York, because the man is not a doctor.
You're right.
So remember, a lot of these guys that came up with York, the man who tried to portray himself as the Egyptian king, pyramids, okay? He had a repetitious cadence as well. But also, let me drop this bomb on people.
Tell the truth.
How many of you know How many of you know that Dr. Let me correct myself here. Woo. That Malachi York was trying to be an R&B singer.
Tell the truth.
You're right.
And I've
I
got
know
the
it.
picture of the album cover. The man was wearing makeup and all these guys. Even that dude, what's his name? Billy Carson, who tries to tell you guys all this weird stuff about aliens. He's got a connection to trying to be a entertainer or a singer too. But that's off the subject matter. But do your research.
It's true though.
This is who these people were following. Am I lying or telling the truth, Brother Honor?
Tell the truth.
You're telling the truth. And Polite, the same thing. Nature Boy, the same thing.
So you have to look at where these guys get their influence and then look at who those individuals are in the pathway that they were on. So like I said, Umar, to me, psychologically, I think that he might have been, if not physically, I don't know. I'm alleging here, everybody, alleging that there may have been some psychological abuse, which, just like many of us, leads you to follow other people that resonate with something that's empty in your life, in your heart. So it doesn't surprise me that someone like Umar gravitated to someone like Malachi York, who also was another person that would bankrupt people emotionally.
Yeah.
And to this day, you've got people on YouTube still defending this man who had the worst case when it came to a ring in which he was abusing minors.
In U.S. history.
In U.S. history. And just so you know, Honor, not to go too far off subject, well, it all matters here. I've got the video, because I'm going to be going into this case about him again on my channel. I've got the actual video. I've played it before, of Malachi York being in court and being given lots of information about, or being talked to by the judge, by the courts, with his lawyer, saying, do you understand the charges? Do you understand what's coming down? Are you of sound mind? And he answered and checked off all the boxes, and you clearly hear him saying, yes, I did these things. And check this out, to Buddha Tuda, he even signed the document.
He sure
and
did.
Reinforced that he was of sound mind. But yet we still got people running around on social media that defends the man. And let's not mistaken this fact. Umar was repping him too.
He sure was. Yep. And I got the video where there's two videos of Umar repping him. I can pull them up right now. And I do have the video where Malachi York is in court. And you're absolutely right. All of this is actual and factual. All right. Real quick. And I wasn't planning on doing this, but I want to do this. Let's consider this to be a bit of an intermission.
Okay.
You spoke and eloquently, you spoke about how Umar Johnson, the influence that you can see that being, how did you phrase it? Door lock child, or what do we call that?
What we call, because the reason why, because I was one of those kids, so I know I can relate to it. He was a latchkey child.
There you go.
These are kids that their parents will work. Let's keep it real. If you were of a single mother where the father may not have been around in your life, the mother was working hard. You come home from school. You warm up some food while mom is at work before she gets home, maybe. Or maybe she's got some food that she's made for you to warm up. And then how do you entertain yourself? Most kids at that time were watching TV shows and getting a lot of their thoughts about the world through television. And I have to emphasize this. They were seeing the world through the lens of white America. Black America was looked at as poor, broken out of doors, shucking and jiving, while white America was looked at as having it all together. You had a lot of us grew up on George Jefferson. Wasn't he shucking around and walking around wheezy and all that sort of stuff? You got JJ's character talking about dynamite. All the characters of black people or black men were of buffoonery, where either a black father was missing or, like Good Times, the black father gets deleted or killed off of the show. Or
Yeah.
you had black women like Diane Carroll playing a character where she was raising all these kids, but no father.
Mm.
Where all the white shows, Happy Days, they got a father.
Yeah.
Even what was that? What's Happening with
Mhm.
Rerun and all those folks? What was going on in that show? You had a mama, but no father, and no mention of where the father was at.
Mm.
Then when you had Red Fox, yeah, you had a father with his son Lamont, who was grown, but somehow they killed the mama off.
I never understood
Always
that.
breaking
Mhm.
the family down. But I
Mhm.
digress.
No, you own it. You own it. I'm so thankful that you came on, man. I'm so thankful. I want to play this video, and I'll play the beginning section, and then I'll skip
Yes, sir.
towards the end, and then I'll just like to have your commentary. So here we go. Everyone in Cook Fresh Chat, thank you so much for being here. This information, man. If you're enjoying the show, you can hit the like button, but I also want to encourage people to get on that Cash App. Okay, I'm just playing. I have Information Man's Cash App there up on the screen. Let me pull this up. I want to play the introduction part, and then I'll skip towards the end and then get your commentary because this ties to
Okay.
what you were saying here. Here we go. And in the chat room, let me know if you guys can hear the audio.
Dr. Umar Johnson, I'm coming to you live and direct from my hood, North Philadelphia. We here. I'm standing on the exact spot where Jermaine Shoemake was brought into the world on August the 21st. This is where the house stood. We are at 8th and Susquehanna. You feel me? 8th and Susquehanna. This is where I grew up. These streets, this is where I played ball. This is where I ran at. This is where I was from. My grandma's house burnt down about 20 or so years ago, but this is where I was born. Umar Johnson, North Philly. This is the home. At 2204 North Franklin, I just wanted to come by, pay respect to the earth, you know what I mean, where I was born at, the earth that Jermaine Shoemake was born into. So this is where it all started, baby. When I do my documentary, it's going to come out. Y'all going to see all that, but I just wanted to bring y'all to the hood, 8th and Susquehanna, you know what I mean? Dr.
Let me pause it right there. Anything catch your eye there that you would like to speak on?
Well, I'm going to say in these videos where he tries to take you back home to where he comes from, and he gives this sort of spiritual, this is the earth I come from, you notice he doesn't talk. This is the thing I noticed when Umar does these kind of videos. And let me know if you've catch this and other folks in the chat room. And I want to say peace to a lady 747 for sending me a $5 super chat. I really appreciate that. Or Cash App. This is the thing that I noticed that's weird about Umar. You notice when he goes back home like this, there's no mention about his family. Doesn't talk about his mother much. Doesn't say, hey, this is the place that my parents gave birth to me at. This is the place where I was nurtured by my mom, my father, my cousins. Doesn't really give you any insight into the people who actually raised him. It's always indirect to like, oh, this is the soil that I came out of. Fool, you didn't come out of that soil, that that stuff on the ground. You're right. This is the hood. It's all this superficial, all this outside of the family. But he doesn't really speak to the family in general. Because if I was to tell you about my background, and I didn't have an easy raising, but my family did the best they could, didn't have a lot of money, but I could definitely tell you proudly about those who had influence in my life that made me what I am today. Umar often doesn't talk about the actual elements of family that made him, because I contend again, I don't know if I'm answering your question, I contend again that there might have been some I'm saying alleged, there might have been alleged psychological abuse, or that he may not have had the best childhood, which is why he's so caught up in imagination. That's what many kids, and I work with kids, that's what many kids do when there's abuse. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
I actually the kind of work that I do, we use music, we use art. There's all sort of different things you can use as therapy to work with people. when I was working with kids, I worked with art therapists. If a child is being abused at home, there's some abuse, there's some sexual abuse, there's some psychological abuse, physical or psychological abuse. They will display it and express it in their drawings and in their art. You can tell by looking at a child who's being abused how their art, meaning simple things like how they draw a house. Do they have cracks? Do they have really distorted images in that house? How do they draw their family members? Do they look like they've drawn a monster image? There's various things that you can tell between if a child is being abused through how they express it in their artwork when you gear an art project towards family.
Okay.
I believe that Umar Johnson is an example of someone who may not have had the best childhood. So he must get you caught up in the superficial stuff. This is the hood I grew up in. This is the soil I came from. I'm a product of Philadelphia. But has he said, I'm a product of good parenting? I'm a product of my mama. I'm a product of I'm a product of good family raising. And another thing, you often say that he's always in his mama's closet, right? Ask yourself, you know, I shouldn't probably go here, but I'm going to allege this. What relationship that a man would have with his mother or a family member where he must broadcast from a closet? See, if I was to go to my mom's place right now and say, Mom, I'm going to do a live stream. Can I use the living room? Can I use this room? She going to say, sure. Because me and my mom have a great relationship. She's going to say, okay, honey, yeah, set it up. Because she knows what I do, right? Okay, yeah, set it up here. You think this would be the best spot for it, right? My mom would not have me in a closet. So you have to ask yourself.
Wow.
You say this all the time, Honors. He doesn't have a place or an office to go to. But why, if he has a good relationship with his family, why would he need to use the closet? Why can't he display his live stream in the living room, in the dining room, or set it up somewhere nice in the house that doesn't look like he's in a closet? What is going on there? I challenge everybody in the chat room to really analyze that.
Yeah, that's deep.
There's a relationship breakdown, brother.
Yeah, and I have never thought about that, and it's beyond me. I don't even have an answer to that. That's deep. We can end the show right there. What were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say, if you have a decent relationship with family that will let you live with them, why would you be in the closet? Unless you don't actually live with them and they're simply tolerating you for the time that you're there because maybe you put a little bit of money in their pocket.
Yeah.
Here you go, Mom. Here's 20. Here's 50. Here's a little something. Money that he's giving the family that he's getting from us.
Yeah.
And so they're simply tolerating you on your visit.
Yeah. Yep.
Another thing you have to ask yourself, when it comes to those buildings in Delaware, Wilmington, if Umar had a decent relationship with his family, I'm speculating allegedly here, why is it that he doesn't have any family members involved in his cause, involved in what he's doing? Why haven't you seen Umar say, here's my cousin such and such, here's my second cousin such and such, here's my uncle such and such out here helping us put this school together? Why? When was the last time, let me challenge the chat room and everybody here. When was the last time you seen Umar Johnson on the site and you see, I don't care what race they are, black, white, I don't really care at this point. Where are the hard hats? Where's the sheetrock going into the building? Where are hammers where you hear people with hammers? Where are the contractors with the blueprints outside directing people, fix this, fix that. Because certainly if Umar Johnson had all these professionals working on the school, he would be broadcasting it. He would be putting it out there. He would be talking to the contractor saying, what are you about to work on today, sir? Well, today we're going to work on that roof that you have, and we're going to replace that roof, which is going to take us maybe about 2 weeks. And we're bringing in new wood, new shelving. Where are the trucks to bring in the supplies? He would be broadcasting that. Where are the videos of him sitting down at a desk interviewing? If he really had teachers that were going to work there, don't you know he would broadcast it live while he's interviewing people? He would put it on some type of broadcast because he broadcasts every damn thing else. If Umar Johnson is going to broadcast a rock and painted RGB colors,
Okay.
and you got that gentleman that always interviews him and says,
Father David. Mhm.
Father David, who really cracked me up when he said, you on rock and rock on you. You sleeping on rock and rock sleeping on you.
Yeah.
If Umar would be so excited to broadcast a damn rock, don't you think he would broadcast the interviews and he would show you the resumes and he would say, this person was a good interview. I'm considering him or her. This person, I'm not sure. Don't you think he would do that? Where's the interviews? Then remember when he was talking to Lord Jamal and he got into this argument about, I got elders already. Ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, if he had these elders, why have you not seen him with the elders up there at those abandoned buildings? Why haven't he had a broadcast meeting, a meeting where you could hear them at a table talking and discussing the goal and the objectives of the school? Where are the elders? He would have that on camera for you to see. Umar is a one-man machine. He doesn't want anyone getting any glory. He wants all the glory for himself. The only reason why Umar has been able to do this scam for all these years is because, unfortunately, black people have allowed the scam to go on.
Yeah.
We are the blame for him having any level of relevance in our life.
Yeah.
When you continue to give him money, support him when he goes live. And that's why I had to disengage from the individual. And I've actually been on channels on YouTube where people have made excuses when you ask the logical question and give the logical questions to determine what's going on. They will find an excuse, which is the white man is trying to stop him. Black people won't support him. Why would the white man be stopping him when he's not accomplishing anything that would be seen as an inherent threat to the system?
Yep. Good point. Mal B says, very interesting point. This is about, I think, the whole situation with the closet. He, instead of having a nice place, even in that house, to live stream, he's in the closet. I mean, that was an eye-opening moment for everyone, including myself. So thank you for that information, man. He said, why would he then get all of these degrees in psychology when he himself has these psychological issues?
You ever heard of what do people normally do when they have issues? Everybody in the chat room and Brother Honored and all the wonderful people in the chat room. What do people do? You identify with the very thing that is your problem as well. Why do you think people trauma bond? Or let's say you have someone who's a drug addict. You have two people that are drug addicts in a relationship with each other, right? Or two people, they gravitate towards other drug addicts that reinforce their problems that they already have, right? That's why they tell you, you can't successfully get over any problem in your life, whether it be drugs, drinking, whatever, if you are in a relationship or with someone who's doing the same thing themselves. You can't recover that way.
That's right.
Well, guess what? Now let's go down the rabbit hole even deeper in this system. When we support Umar and give him money, go to his, when he goes live, and we reinforce in his mind, yeah, Umar, you're right. That's right. We are simply just like the person, we're in a relationship with Umar in which we are what? Enabling the person with problems. So the people that have been supporting Umar, that will go to bat for Umar and argue you down for Umar, they are enabling the behavior because they almost become the drunk like Umar themselves, because they're drunk off of the fantasies of what he's putting out there in terms of this dream of a school. And let's be honest here, schools are good, schools are great, but Umar Johnson makes black people think, or some black people think, that him opening up a school, his one school, will solve all the ills of black America. It's almost as if Umar psychologically, consciously and self-consciously is trying to say he's black America's principal. He's black America's teacher. My school solves all of black America. That's why he had the audacity to say, we're going to have a school bus that's going to go to New York, Philadelphia, DC, maybe even California. And bring those kids to the school. You know where that comes from, Honors? I don't know if you thought about this. Remember I told you he probably grew up watching those fantasy movies. It's almost like the school is going to be a magical Pan-African school bus. Like Santa Claus. You know how Santa Claus is able to travel all over the world with his reindeer? It's almost like there's going to be this magical black bus that's got some type of power of the ancestors to go anywhere in the world to pick up black kids and bring them to FDMG.
Yeah. There you own it. Miss Rizzle. Yeah. Get on the magic school bus.
Just remember, wait a minute, Honors. I'm glad you said that. Wasn't there a cartoon or some kind of educational commercial? It's called the Magical School Bus or something similar to that.
Yeah.
I bet. And so when Umar talks like that, it's all based in his fantasy that has been embedded in his head, as I say, a potential latchkey child. You know why I can say that with confidence is because when I was growing up too and I was latchkey, I had these fantasies too. Watching these TV programs. Until eventually you grow up and somehow something pulls you from fantasy into reality, but some of us stay in fantasy.
Yeah.
And you said arrested development. You can be a grown person and there could be lapses in certain areas of your maturity. Certain areas that you lag in. Because I'm going to be honest with you. I think Umar Johnson is like some of our people in our communities who has some form of mental health problem that has gone undiagnosed and needs to be treated, needs some form of counseling to deal with the issues that go back to his childhood.
Yeah.
And because he's probably never has dealt with these issues, it's very hard to get him to stop what he's doing when he's presenting these fantasies to the black community at large.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue back to this video. Let me play a little bit more of it. And then I have maybe about 4 more questions, and then we'll at least probably get closer to wrapping up. This again, I played a little bit of this before. I'm going to pick right back up where I left off. Here we go.
Umar Johnson, all my North Philly people, Allegheny Avenue, Erie Avenue, 22nd Street, Burke Street, Jefferson Street, Lehigh Avenue, Germantown Avenue. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And what I want you to do, we're going to keep that film running because we're going to make one stop with the film running because I want you to see where I used to be to stay out of trouble. I would always ask my mom and my grandma for $2. $2. There's a $1 movie up here. Shout out to my Afro Puerto Ricans. $1 movie up here that the Afro Puerto Ricans own. And it was $1 to get in and I would use the other dollar to get me a popcorn and a soda. The first movie was at 12 o'clock. The last movie was at 6 o'clock. So it was 3 movies. 12, 2, 4, 4 movies. It was over at 8. And I would go there and sit in there and watch movies all day. On Beach Street, Breaking, Rambo, Predator, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Your comments? I mean, you were just talking about this, weren't you?
Yeah.
And his demeanor too speaks volume. It's like he turns into this little child as he's talking about these things.
Right. I want to shout out, if I could, Jay the Informant. Thank you for the $4 Cash App. And I also want to thank Derek in the chat room for the $10 Cash App as well. I really appreciate you all for the support. So you see right there, you played the perfect video where it's obvious that, I mean, we all grew up watching these movies. So I want to be fair here, but I still think that his childhood is where all this stuff comes from. And it plays itself out even into adulthood, because there's trauma here. There's impact that still carries with you into your adulthood. And you know what they always say, Brother Honor, that, and I see this in my own line of work. Most people who have been abused, either physically or psychologically, can become abusers themselves in so many different ways. Most of the guys that I deal with, they all have became abusers themselves. Abuse comes in many packages. So when he's talking about black women, the cookies, the hair, all these different things, to me, it's a form of his disrespect for women.
Yeah.
His lack of discernment when it comes to women. And you said this in many of your videos that I've watched. Why is it that he has mostly women who are up there in those buildings painting? Why is it that he has mostly women that he's bringing into dangerous areas? Because he may have a lack of respect for women that may lead back to whatever the relationship is with his mama.
Yeah.
Who he has to use a closet at her house. That says volumes to me. And then you don't have many men around him, but he is playing off on females because he knows that there's a lot of black women that are single mothers, or some that are single mothers, that he can prey on with his con. And he knows, this is what I notice. I want to be fair here. This is just what I've noticed. I noticed that men tend to be the ones that confront Umar the most when it comes to what's going on with the school. More so than I've seen with women. Now, I've seen some female radio hosts that he got into it with that really exposed him. But I noticed when you say, where's the men? The reason why you don't see a lot of men rocking with Umar, because a lot of these men that would rock with him, some of them could see through the bullshit. And a lot of the men that would want to be, that are thinking critically, not emotionally, would want to say, let's see the books. So I don't think Umar wants to deal with women that would start asking questions about stuff more in detail. This is what I submit to you and everybody in the chat room. The women that you don't see with Umar anymore around him is probably because they begin to start asking him the critical questions. Just like some of the guys that are not rocking with him who asked him critical questions and he shouts them down. These women probably came to their senses and realized, where is this going? And start asking those critical questions, and then they fell off and stopped following Umar because they realized themselves eventually that this is nothing more than a grift.
Yeah, I totally agree. Let's continue with this video. Here we go.
All them joints. So you know what, Kay? I'm gonna open the door for you. I'm gonna get in and start the whip. Keep it rolling. Third Center, Chicago, December. So we live. King Kong Consciousness International E5 Tunde, Chicago, December 26th, Harold, Washington Community Center, Chicago. Get your tickets. Atlanta, Thursday, December 28th, Shrine of the Black Madonna in Atlanta, the 28th. And then we got Houston, Texas, Saturday, December 30th. And then we got Detroit, Michigan, Motown, New Year's Day. Get your tickets, drumarjohnson.com, drumarjohnson.eventbrite.com. So show them this, okay? This was the movie theater. Now it's a banquet hall. It's not a movie theater no more. It's a banquet hall. But what I want them to know, this is where I saw Breaking 1, Breaking 2, Beach Street, Rambo, Predator, Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm trying to think of some of the other joints, Kay. I can't even remember all the movies I saw, but this is where I was. I wasn't Umar yet. I was Jermaine Shoemake, little Jermaine Shoemake, and this is where I would hang out. Shout out to the Shoemake family. If I get to school in Atlanta, my Shoemake family, which is my mommy family, my mom's side, maternal ancestor, they from Georgia. So if we get to school in Atlanta, I'll be in the state of my maternal ancestors. You feel me? But this is where I used to be at, baby. This is, I'm showing y'all, show them a little bit.
All right.
Can I say something, Honors, just real quick?
Yeah, please. Please.
I'm going to go back to this theme again. If he has all these family members, why has anybody in the chat room ever witnessed Umar Johnson present any of his family members that are rocking with him, support him, that are involved with the school in terms of trying to help him out? Where are they? For a man who has all these people following him on social media, when he's claiming to build a school, why are his family members? I know he has some issues with his father, but still, where are all these people? Matter of fact, if he can go and speak and get people in the audience watching and listening to him, why can't he get all these people to come out and help him build a school? It's always a small minority of people. This is the argument that I'm going to make, Brother Honor. I think at this point, Umar, I think people outside of those that actually support him financially, I think for the most part, people see him as entertainment.
Yeah.
People are watching him as entertainment, which is probably why he still gets views, because people are entertained and they're actually not waiting to hear him talk about schools and black boys and education. They're waiting to hear him say, I want to get her peanut butter.
Yeah. Yep.
They're waiting to hear him talk about white folks, and they're waiting to hear him talk about the drama and to say the goofy stuff.
Yeah.
And
I
if
totally
you
agree.
notice, he has piggybacked to going on the podcast trail. He's getting on different podcasts talking about people in the celebrity world. Because what he has discovered, and you have said this yourself, is that he does very well when he talks about those sort of issues. Because the whole school scam, he's not making any money off of it, but he's making his $500, whatever they're paying him, to come on these podcasts. And these podcasters know they're going to get good views.
Yeah. 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 And there was a time where he was able to really make a lot of money selling this school idea. But over the years, I mean, it's 19 years altogether. It's been 10 years since the St. Paul's project or crowdfunding started. It's been 5 years and 4 months since he acquired these abandoned buildings in Wilmington, Delaware. So people aren't sending him the same type of money. So I can see it clearly that he's doing more of the celebrity gossip type of thing. He gets onto these podcasts, these radio shows, and he says things that are go viral. And that's pretty much where his focus has been for quite some time now. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that there's any possibility that Umar will actually open up an accredited school?
No, not in the way that he wants to do it. I think Umar blew a golden opportunity that you have talked about. I think Umar, this is part of his ego problem. I think Umar is more concerned about personal credit for a school than he actually is about educating black boys. I'll tell you why. When you look at the history of black people building schools in this country, most of the founders of schools are not alive to see how the school has grown. So instead of Umar taking the money that he had and creating like a small program like what Q Butter has, and starting out in a small, inexpensive room or inexpensive building or something, and building the program up over time to build a legacy, whether he's alive or no longer here, he's more concerned about getting the look at me credit. He should have taken advantage of the online courses, especially during COVID. He could have racked up with online courses and consulting had he been more wise in decision making, because you can actually make more money dealing with educating people without a brick and mortar. He could have had online courses, and he could have created a consulting company where he could come in and help black families. He could have hired people to work as counselors, to go into households. He could have really expanded something really big, but his ego would not allow that because he wants to be the head honcho. He wants to have credit to say, look at what I built. And therefore, he punches down on someone like Q Butter by saying, that ain't the kind of school I want to have. Or he talks down to Lord Jamal and say, well, that might be the school that your father-in-law has, but mine's going to be the African. And Lord Jamal told him the concept may be different, but the principles of building a school is still the same.
That's right.
He does not listen because there's accountability. And this is the argument I'm going to make too, I'm going to put on the table. If you notice when he talks to black men who ask those fundamental questions, I think that Umar Johnson also has a problem with relating to black men because of his own poor relationship with his father.
Yeah.
So you notice that he was very disrespectful to Lord Jamal, who was very respectful to him even when he was yelling at him. And I said this on my own channel. I think black people in general, it goes back to self-hate. We don't respect one another, and some of us don't in general because there's some self-hate. And I think that sometimes when it comes to black men in particular, or black people in particular, generalizing here, is that we don't adhere very well to black authority because we grow up and we don't often see a lot of black authority. So if you don't have a father in the household who becomes your first black male authority, and you grow up in a world where most authority is non-black that you have to deal with in the system, then when you have a black man who has authority, who's trying to tell you how to do something, like Lord Jamal saying, hey, I have a father-in-law who has authority, who built a school, you don't want to listen to the rules or the advice of another black person or black man because you don't have respect for black people, because you don't respect yourself, and you're not used to adhering to black authority. That's a psychological issue that some black people have.
Yeah,
I'll give you an example. When I was in college and I took some black studies courses, I noticed that if the black professor would say, turn in your work on this is the due date for the paper or the exam, I would see black people having all sort of excuses for the black professor. Why? Well, he black just like me, so he should be able to give me a break. But when that white professor tells you the paper must be turned in on this day and the test is on this day, no excuses asked. From my experience, I never saw black people bring excuses to white professors or white people. We have so many excuses for each other and less excuses for the very people that we say are our enemies. Umar plays into that narrative as well.
Yeah, you're right. And I think we can draw a correlation to Umar, how his approach to the quote unquote building this school, when we talk about the black-white dynamic. As an example, he expects black people to do everything for free. He expects
Mhm.
black people to give their time and labor. In some cases, he expects black people to pay him money so that they can have the right to come up there to paint for free.
Right.
Whereas he's actually stated that at a certain point, he got tired of dealing with black people, so he had to go to the Latinos. And at a certain point, he had to stop dealing with the Latinos and he had to go to white people to get the job done. The job
Right.
still isn't done, but is there a correlation there too?
Right. Let me just do this shout out real quick. Malachi gave me $3. I think I'm saying that name correct. $3 Cash App. Thank you. And Keith Chapman gave me a $29 Cash App. I appreciate you as well. Thank you. Ask yourself very deeply, everybody. If you love black people and you push the Pan-Africanism that we're all African, why would you use black people only to make them work for you as their reward, when you should be rewarding them for the efforts that they make without you trying to put an ultimatum on you? Why is he giving ultimatums? But he's not doing that with other groups. It goes back to what I said again, the self-hate, the disrespect. If you grow up in an environment where you didn't really have the best if you didn't have the most nurturing coming up as a kid in an environment like Philadelphia where he grew up, I wonder if Umar ever really respected black people. I wonder if he was treated poorly by some black people in his community, and that has continued to hold to him even now. Because if you respect your people and you respect black women, you would not have them out there painting walls. That would be the work of men.
I agree.
You would not allow women to be painting, and you would not allow women to be walking into abandoned buildings that are crumbling or in bad shape where they can get bit by a rat or something of that nature.
Right.
You would
You're right.
only have men doing the work of men to build it up.
Yeah.
And then have women come in, because our job as men, and you say this all the time, our job as men is to protect, to provide to our women. So why is Umar not building the school with men and bring women into the school under a school that is protected, that is safe to be in? That, in a way, psychologically is part of, as a man, protecting the woman. We're going to build this place. We're going to fix this place. We're going to make it safe for our women and our children to be in the school. You know why this is important? Because the majority of teachers and black teachers are female.
You're right.
So why would you want female teachers in an unsafe environment? And if he cared about the teachers, whether it be male or female, and the kids, why would you pick a environment that has 2 state prisons in it, if I'm not mistaken?
No.
And as you said, was ranked number 6 or 7 in terms of the most worst community with drugs and violence. Also, as we looked at the environmental impact report, a browning area. Why would you put women and children, young men, in an environment that's that toxic if you really care about black people? Unless this is all part of a front to grift money off of black people, keep this illusion of a school, while milking black people of their money, which we would call resources, for as long as he can milk it, and then turn around and say, I may have to run off to Africa.
Yeah. No.
I contend when this whole thing falls apart, Honors, and you've talked about this, I contend that Umar will figure out a way to say the white man took it from me. When it comes to the taxes and all the other things that he's under, he's going to figure out a way to say, I wanted to build a school, but the white man came in, took it from us, took it from me, and I had coon Negroes who also were involved as agents, because black people love to throw that word agents around. Oh, there's agents out here. Ain't nobody no damn agents. The problem is you ain't doing what you supposed to do, Umar. There ain't no agents. Why? The only way that there would be an agent is that the government would have to see the school as a threat. Why would, if you got some abandoned buildings with rats running through the buildings, what threat what threat does that reveal to the government? There is no threats. So therefore, they wouldn't need to send any agents to stop you because you're stopping yourself.
Yeah. No. Real quickly, other super chats and things. I hope you guys are enjoying the show inside the chat room. If you guys don't mind hitting the like button, I appreciate that. I would appreciate it. Sigmund said, "Thank you, Leonard, for inviting Information Man to the stream. You are touching on the tip of the iceberg. Information Man, keep kicking that knowledge." All right.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Sigmund. We appreciate it. Also, I think I did this one already. Someone said Leonard sound like Father David. Here we go.
You sleep on rock sleep on you. Let me say something about Father David real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have made great points about this. I think deep down inside, Father David and a lot of these podcasters, they know that, even the Breakfast Club, they know that Umar's full of shit.
Yeah.
But I think they see it as a way to bring clout and attention to their podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if Umar turns out to be a complete fraud and it never happens, you know what Father David can do? He can get on his podcast and say, I believed in him. I thought Umar was honorable. He came on my shows. I interviewed him. Sleep on rock. And I believed in him, but he has misled me. He has misled me. So these podcasters can fall on that sword and say, I was misled. I'm not the one that took y'all money. I'm not the one that lied to you about a school. I simply interviewed the brother because I believed in him. You see?
Yeah. No, you're right. All right. I have a couple of final questions, but before we get to that point, I want to make sure that I give the Cookie Crush chat, the chat room, an opportunity. If you have any specific questions that you want to direct towards Information Man before we begin to wind down the show, now is the time to do that. I have his Cash App listed there. I want to encourage people to not send super chats, although I do appreciate it. If you can direct resources towards his Information Man Show's Cash App, it's right there up on the screen. I would appreciate that. Okay. Stephanie says, Information Man, have you ever worked with people that are developing bad personality traits like Umar? How do you direct that energy to be more of a team player, less egotistical, more honest, etc.?
Well, I actually deal with guys who have, where I work at my capacity, because I deal with guys in the prison system. I deal with guys who have personality disorders, that are narcissistic at the highest level, who are egotistic, and even guys that are psychopaths who have done serious crimes. I've dealt with guys, I can't give any names, but I have dealt with prominent serial killers, believe it or not. Guys who have done some serious, gang members of all types. What we do is we try to do therapy in order to have these guys deal with the core of their problems. So we try to get guys to look at going back to their childhood, where it all began. And it's a long session of meeting with them over a period of time to peel down the onion. You have to start very slowly. And a lot of the guys that I deal with, they don't have good coping skills. You know why? It all goes back to their childhood. So I'm going to say this, it's not very easy. A lot of the guys that I deal with, some of them get it and some of them never get it, because their narcissistic personality traits will override what you would call as logical thinking. I'm also dealing with guys who have antisocial personalities. So they are used to taking from society instead of giving to society. But someone, in order for therapy to work, you have to admit that you have a problem like anything else, whether it be drinking, substance abuse of any kind. One must be willing to say, I have a problem. Most of the guys that are successful in what we do are the guys who tend to say, yes, I have a problem with my depression. I have thoughts of SI, what we call suicidal ideations. I have bad dreams. I feel like taking my life. Once guys admit that they have these problems, then one can begin treatment, not only with just medications, but the proper counseling. And where I work at, we have social workers. We have a psychologist that does a battery of psychological tests and evaluations and counseling. And we have the social workers. You have myself who work as a therapist. And we all come at it as a complete treatment team to help the individual with these problems. Our goal is to stabilize them and then to make recommendations for further treatment programs within the prison system to further give them help. Someone like Umar, this is the problem. Umar has to admit or come to Jesus, whatever you want to call it, that there is a problem. As long as he's not willing to admit that there's a problem, he can never improve himself. And this is where I'm going to go back to this, Honors. We, as the public, have to stop giving him money and supporting him, because just like a alcoholic, if you keep giving them drinks, you keep feeding into the problem, they never think that they have a problem. As long as he keeps getting invited to the Breakfast Club and to this podcast and to every podcast where he can speak his speech about a myriad of things about Black America. As long as people are feeding into inviting him to stuff, Umar, in my opinion, my humble opinion, won't admit his problems. He can never get better because everybody is feeding into the delusion.
Yeah.
What he has going for him is that he's a good arbiter. He's a good speaker. He does say some things about things that are happening in Black America that are true. And I think because he says things that are true, that are factual, that resonate with people emotionally, like I told you in the beginning of this show, people are still willing to forgive the fact that he's totally grifting on the school issue, but because he hits certain talking points about the other issues that particular podcast wants to focus on, therefore, he's a good booking for the show. Just give us that stuff, Umar. Even though we know everything else is fraudulent, just give us that and we'll forgive you about the rest of the stuff. As long as we as Black people keep feeding into giving him these opportunities, he's never going to find his way.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ego is being fed.
Real quick, James Dean said Umar's father said his supporters created this monster, referring to Umar, and his father did say that. Do you have any perspective on that?
Well, let me say this. Let me say to High Tower, thank you for the $20 Cash App. I really appreciate that as well. Have you thought about this, Honors, and everybody in the chat room? Have you ever thought that the father is in denial that he's the one that created the blueprint for the monster?
Yeah.
You see, the father knows what he did and what he didn't do for his son. So, yeah, he may come out and say, oh, this is what Umar is. This is what's affecting him. But you're the father.
Yeah.
You're the one that's supposed to raise your son. You see, if he had a respectable relationship with his father, right? So, for example, Honors, you have sons. Let's say you have a charismatic son, Honor, and he's on social media and talking up, and you know he's doing some wrong things. If you had a respectful relationship with your son in which he respects you, because you tried and made efforts to be in his life and bring him down the right path, but he goes off that path.
Yeah.
You would have better influence to be able to talk to him behind the scenes and say, son, I think you're presenting yourself this way wrong. And he would listen to you if there was a respect factor there.
That's right.
You would think that Umar's father would be able to talk to his son and say, son, you're going off course here. And if he had this relationship with Umar, maybe you would see Umar change his ways because he respects his father and would not want to disrespect his father in the family.
Mm-hmm.
This is a sign that there is no relationship and that the father has probably failed in his responsibility as a nurturer. Any man can have a child, but it takes a real man to be a father. And maybe his father realizes that he failed Umar. This is why he can't change Umar from doing what he's doing. And Umar has fallen off the rails and Umar has no respect for him.
Mm. Yeah. And it's very apparent to me. And as a parent, there are times you can raise your children the best you can with best intentions, but they will go off and veer off course. And it is our jobs as fathers or as mothers to do our best to get them back on course. The earlier, the better. But I think with Umar, he's been off the leash for such a long, I shouldn't say use that term, but he's been off the chain for such a long time.
Yes, sir.
And he has no respect for anyone. And there's no relational connection that he feels like he can just continue to do what he does. And there's no consequence.
Well, ask yourself, has anyone held him to the feet to the fire of the things that he's doing? We're talking about people who have street cred. We have people on YouTube like ourselves who may have an opinion about what he's doing. But if you had, for example, imagine if the people at Breakfast Club who keep inviting him on every year say, Umar, we can't mess with you anymore because of these reasons. If all these podcasters turned their back on him and said, dude, until you clean up yourself and start showing transparency with the school, we can't interview you about the black community. You know why I say this, Honors? Because as long as he's running this con game on the black community, I don't think he has a right, even though he thinks he does, I don't think he has a right to say anything negatively or give a critique about celebrities or the black community, even if his critique is right. I don't think he has the right to say anything when he hasn't taken care of the business, which is building the school, since he always tells you who in the community is making a school like me. So as long as you're grifting black people, you don't have a right to have a damn opinion about what's happening in black America when you've been running a scam on black America.
Yeah, 19 years and counting.
I don't want to hear you talking about LeBron James school and the problems there when you haven't done what you're supposed to do.
That's right.
I don't want to hear you talking about Angel Reese and Clark and that issue. I don't want to hear you saying any damn thing about anything when you've been having us wrapped up in, imagine this, Honor. We've been wrapped up in HVAC for what, 2, 3, 4? He's had those buildings for 5 years. We've been wrapped up in HVAC for 4 years. HVAC, not sheetrock, not new windows, not desks coming into the building, not people being hired, not infrastructure being put in place, but HVAC, which he has lied to us about.
Yeah, they're doing paint days and there's still no HVAC, no ventilation whatsoever. Jay the light seeker is goofing off. He says everybody hates Jermaine. No, okay.
Let me just say that I put this on the record. I do not hate Umar Johnson. I do not want anything bad to happen to him. What I would like Umar Johnson to do is I would like him to turn a leaf.
Yeah, me too.
I would like him. And this is the thing. Black people are very forgiving. I've said this before. You've said this. I think if Umar did a live video came clean and said, everybody, you all have given me money over a decade now. And I've gotten on these social media airwaves. And I got to be honest with you that as much as it embarrasses me, that I have misled you in so many ways. My own arrogance has kept me from working with people that could have helped me build this school. I keep asking you for money every year. I keep changing the dates. And the truth of the matter is, folks, I'm in really bad shape. I'm behind in this money. I don't think I'm going to be able to build this school. And I think I've done it to myself because I wasn't willing to work with people that were willing to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept asking you all for money because I was ashamed to tell you that I was needing to use this money for my own personal benefit, or that I could not do this project. I think if Umar Johnson was to come clean tomorrow, yes, there would be a bunch of black people that would talk shit about him, make videos on YouTube and drag him. But if he showed real humbleness and asked for forgiveness and apologized, even after everybody drags him all over social media, and he apologizes and humbles himself and asks for somebody to help him, I bet you when it all falls over, you would actually have black people that would actually reach out to him and say, let's help the brother. He's admitted his wrong. He's humbled himself. Let's help him. Because why? Black people have a forgiving spirit.
Right. All right. Some final comments and questions before we close out here. Holly B. How's it going? Holly B says, hello at Information Man. I want to thank you and lend an honor for staying honest and real. Thanks for keeping people informed about Umar and his grifting. Yeah, you're very welcome, Holly B. Also, someone had asked a question. This is an interesting question. Gracious Divine. In your opinion, who's holding Umar accountable?
I don't think anybody's holding him accountable who actually has the cachet to make him change what he's doing. I think what's happening is I think we're all holding him accountable when we make videos and we put out there what he's doing, which causes people to stop supporting him. But are we actually holding him accountable where, to me, if he was really held accountable, he wouldn't be able to be on any podcast, as I said before, and he wouldn't be booked at any events because people would say, we're not booking you.
Yeah.
We're not booking you, sir. So as long as he's being booked on these podcasts, there's always a younger generation. Let's say we got the Z generation now, right? Who may not know a lot about him. Now they get hooked on Umar. So the only way we have to create an atmosphere and put out content that exposes him for what he is, to the point that these bigger podcasters will eventually say, I can't book him. We can't book him.
No.
We can't do it.
No.
We can't bring him on because he's not showing that he's being honest.
Yeah.
But let me say this. I'll end with this. The people that actually watch him when he goes live and send him money, they have to hold him accountable too. Stop sending him money.
Someone had asked, does Umar have any siblings? Yes, he has many siblings. He also has, how do they call that? Half brothers and sisters. So,
right.
So, and it's a lot. His
and
father
we don't
has
see
many
any of them up there at those buildings assisting him in the project. That's very telling to me.
Yeah. We can even bring up the fact that his father, who at least for a while promoted himself as a community activist, he's been on the news. He's, people have YouTube videos. I haven't seen him up there helping Umar with this school project.
It goes back to what do you think is going on? Honest, what do you think is really going on with him and the father?
Well, they have a dysfunctional relationship, and it's been dysfunctional. I think that there was abuse early on and bullying. His father was in addition to being in the military, he was a drill sergeant. So imposing that level of force, verbal force onto Umar, probably physical force too. And then, of course, his father abandoned the family at a certain point, started another family. So Umar has a lot of resentment towards his father.
Ask yourself this other question too, everybody. When have you ever, as much as Umar talks about the youth and kids, when have you ever seen Umar with his own kids on camera, sitting in an office, sitting at home around a table with his children, saying, "Hello, Daddy," laughing, giggling, and we support what our daddy is doing, and we want you to support our daddy, Umar? When have you seen him hugged up with his family or any of these things? For a man who keeps talking about he's for the black family, you haven't. See, my thing is, if a person is going to push like he does with his notoriety about the family structure, the African family, the Pan-Africanism, then he should be showing his Pan-Africanism with his family, at least with his kids.
Yeah.
But you don't see that.
Mm-hmm.
You have him on podcasts talking about black men not being responsible for their kids, but yet he's not married, or shows you that he's in a healthy relationship, or show you with his kids. Not that I'm saying that someone has to put their kids on social media, because of course you want to protect your kids, but this is a man who touts it at the highest level.
Yeah.
And you don't see it.
Yep. By the way, if people don't know, Umar also admitted that he has court-ordered supervised visitations with his daughter, and he, in that video, is really, really horrible, because he gives the grandmother's information, personal information, his daughter's mother's information. He tells his followers to go up there to their place of business and confronts them, and to confront them. He's a loose cannon, and he's dangerous, in my opinion.
Right. But the critical thinking that people are not using is that you can use educational deductive reasoning. What are the reasons that one, as a man or a woman, gets put on court order visitation unless there is a allegation of abuse, physical or verbal, or what's that? You got physical and verbal abuse,
emotional,
child endangerment in some kind of way, in which you as a parent are seen as unfit to have those kids a certain amount of time, and you must have either visitation, supervised, or otherwise. You don't get a court order like that put on you unless there's something legitimate going on. Why don't Umar Johnson supporters ever use critical analysis to think about that one?
Yeah.
Another thing I must say too, before we break this podcast or in this show today, you know, when you are a professional, you have what they call CEUs, continuing education credits.
Yeah.
When you have to go to conferences or various get-togethers where you get the latest information on your field to maintain your accreditation. Why? When has the last time we seen Umar Johnson say, "I'm on a plane getting ready to fly to such and such, where I'm re-accredited, I'm getting more education for my psychology accreditation"? When does he have time to do any of these things? You never hear him talk about it. And you know that Umar is not up to date. You know why? Because I work around psychologists and psychiatrists. I hear the latest stuff that they talk about and they learn when we talk to each other at work. When I hear Umar talk antiquated terms, I'm saying to myself, this dude has not increased his education. Nobody, as you say, is talking about using word processors and typewriters. No kid is using a typewriter today. No kid is using a word processor. I used a word processor back in the early 90s when word processors were popular. Umar, everything that he talks about is antiquated. that shows me that he's not keeping up to date with his own profession.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. All right, let me get to some final comments and questions, and then we'll close out the show. Thanks everyone inside the chat room. Again, I do have Information Man's Cash App there. If you guys can be so kind, if you're willing to and you're able, support the brother for being on the show. I really appreciate him being here, and I hope you guys do too. Alden said lots of good learning points. Good show tonight. Thank you, Alden. We appreciate that. Emma says Umar and his father have a lot of dysfunction to resolve. They're a hot stinking mess. Okay, all right. Bradley says facts. All he has to do is be honest, but he has to accept the criticism that's going to come with it and accept all accountability. That speaks to what you were saying, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Let
and I
me,
totally agree with that.
Shout out, if I could, brother.
Yeah, please.
I think his name is Ciso Fizz, who gave me a $25 Cash App. I want to say thank you as well. I appreciate that. If I said the name right, Ciso, I'm bad with names, but thank you, brother, for that Cash App. I really appreciate that. Honest, I must say this to you. I think that you're doing a great job. You are the most forerunner when it comes to the issues of Umar Johnson. You have the receipts, you have the data. You're actually doing a great deal. I know you've taken some criticism over the years, but you are doing the right thing, exposing individuals who are not being honest with the community that they claim that they love. So I say kudos to you for doing that, because Umar Johnson, like I said, I don't want to see anything bad happen to him, but he has been on a course for years now, a decade now or more, of misleading black people. If you notice, going back to what I said before about he doesn't do well with getting along with black men. He had a fallout with Tariq Nasheed over the use of the video, the hidden colors. You spoke about that. He's had a fallout with most of those people that you see on Cy Netta's podcast out there, part of the black conscious community.
General Seti.
Right, General
was
Seti.
the Seti
He's had a
rant.
fallout with everybody. And you notice it's mostly men. And I contend that it goes back to a broken relationship with the father. Okay? I'm going to keep that theme. So it shows me, and it reflects why you don't see, again, I must reinforce this, why you don't see an army of black men in particular out there in Delaware helping to build that school and volunteering their services, or that most of the black men that have, he doesn't get back to them.
Yep. He has a history of that. Eric said, thank you, brother, information. And also thank you for those kind words. Like I said, as we wind this down, you've been an inspiration for me, getting my life turned back around. I still got a long way to go, made a lot of mistakes. Bradley says it perfectly here. We have to be honest, and we have to, this is part of being a man. Be honest. Right. You have to accept the criticism, and I've accepted a lot of the criticism. Some of it was unwarranted, but I did take the criticism to use it as motivation to get things turned around and accept full and all accountability. I would hope that for Umar. Eric said, thank you, brother, information man. As a counselor in the field, we don't get to talk about mental health enough. Umar gives our field a bad name and heartburn when he starts talking. Can you speak to that too? I hadn't thought about that. You're a professional. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I've said this on my own channel. I think one of the areas that I notice about social media is that we have a denial in our community, some of our communities, when it comes to the issue of mental health. I think black people in general sort of make the excuse when you have an uncle or a father in your family who has a drinking problem or a substance problem or some problem, and you say, that's crazy Uncle Charlie. He's just been touched. No, he has a real problem that has gone undiagnosed. What I notice on social media is that you have some black people who bring their mental health problems to social media, and they try to mask it in defending people like Umar or becoming a social media personality like a polite, trying to become something. I think that these individuals do put a bad light on the profession, because when people like myself try to talk about this, you can always find people in our community that will defend Umar and tell you that you're wrong, because we are in denial of the mental health problems that we have in the Black community. We see the idea of getting professional help as something that shows that, oh, you're weak, or that it's weird. That's what white people do. But in fact, we are in a lot of pain as a community. And I think that Umar has internal pain as well, which plays into the behavior. He's masking everything, honors, everybody. It's a mask. This whole thing about I'm King Kong consciousness is another form of masking the really little man that he is. I submit to you that when he turns off his social media and he goes to bed at night, when he's by himself and alone, he doesn't really like who he sees or who he is. But when he turns on that social media on his phone, he tells you, I'm King Kong consciousness. I'm the most sought after psychologist in the game. Ask yourself, if Umar Johnson is the most sought after psychologist in the game, we would see him on ABC in the morning, Good Morning America. He would be someone that they would refer to on all issues. We would see him on mainstream television right now being interviewed when things happen in the communities in this country. He is not the most sought after. That is a figment of his own mind and brain. Ask yourself this: how many peer-reviewed study material has Dr. Umar Johnson put out there? Books that have been peer-reviewed by professionals in the field. When has he written any documents to contribute to the field of psychology that's been peer-reviewed? I'll wait if you find some, because you ain't going to find nothing.
That's true. That's true. Mr. Controversy, what's up, Mr. Controversy? Says, I'm not forgiving Umar for anything. God forgives, I don't. That's the problem with Black folks now. Too damn friendly and forgiving. Okay.
Yeah, that's how nature we forgive.
Yeah. The thing is, I think it's part of our nature. I think it's part of our, and thanks, Mr. Controversy, for super. Everyone else who sent the super chat, thank you so much. I think it's an aspect of Black culture that we're very forgiving people. And I've said it many times that if Umar decided to ask for forgiveness, like you were explaining earlier, that the vast majority of us would forgive him. I would forgive him, and I wouldn't. I may criticize the school situation, but in terms of him turning his life around, I would be very supportive of that. I would be very supportive of that. In fact, I'm going to ask this, and this will be my final question to you. There's two other comments I want to read here, but this will be my final question to you, because this aspect of Umar getting his life turned around. I don't want anything bad to happen to him. You stated that you don't want anything bad to happen to him.
Right.
If you could sit down with Umar Johnson today, and he was there willingly to listen to your best advice on what he should do, not just with the school situation, but also, more importantly, as a man, to transform his life so that when he lays his head down at night, he doesn't look upon himself with such disdain, where he can have some pride and dignity, and he can wake up in the morning as a man with get up and go to engage the world in a positive way. What would you say to him?
Well, I don't think you want to break people down, but I would actually let Umar know how maybe he has squandered the potential of where he could be in 2024 in the 21st century. I would make this is what we do in therapy. I would make Umar look at old footage of himself to look back at what he was compared to what he is now. This is called self-reflection. A lot of us don't want to deal with this. Yeah. Sometimes it's good to see where you were before you went off course, to be able to say, because you can tell people, hey, man, you got a problem. But when you actually make them look at it, then they can't turn around and say, you're a lie. No, look at yourself. Back in 2011 and beyond, 2005, look at where you were at, how you look, how you presented yourself. Look at the number of people that you had supporting you. What happened to where you were then? What happened? That's called, and this is called, it's sort of like allowing them or holding them to be accountable to what they were compared to what they are now, and having them look at that self-examination, compare and contrast. And if you can get that individual to say, yeah, I was different then compared to what I am now, or my crowds are not as big, it's called admitting that you first have a problem or that there's something that's changed, to get them to understand that maybe I want to make a change because I can actually see where I was compared to where I am now. I would present that to Umar Johnson as sort of an icebreaker, not to just badger him, but to first say, let's look at where you were. And if he can look at himself and be honest and say, there's something that's changed. Now, whatever's changed, Umar, what can we do, Umar, or what can you do, Umar, to change who you are or what the narrative is about you today? Why, I would say to Umar, why is it that your audience is smaller than it was then? Umar, why is it that you're not getting those calls like you used to, like you did then? What was it? Now, of course, he may say, oh, it's because of the coon Negroes. But really in therapy, the goal is to get people to look at themselves. Take off the clothes. This is metaphors now. You know, I suggest everybody, if you're trying to fight through something, you're trying to build yourself up. I've said this before. Set in your house, your apartment, your room, wherever you live at. Turn your cell phones off. Turn your everything off. Set in a dark room in a chair. Deal with yourself. Look at yourself in a mirror, your naked body without your clothes, the man-made stuff. Look at yourself. I'm not saying look at yourself and say, hey, I don't like the weight on my body. I'm saying really look at yourself metaphorically in a naked way, to look at. And this is something that people don't want to deal with, because why? We don't want to deal with the internal fear of who we really are. Take away the title of psychologist, title, all these titles. Look at who you really are in the mirror. Most people don't want to do that because they may see something that they don't like. That's why we play. That's why people rather listen to music, the cell phones, all these distractions that help us to medicate what we really don't like about ourselves. That's why most people are afraid to sit in a room, turn the lights off, turn the cameras off, turn the cell phones off, sit there and think about, what is it about myself that I'm struggling with? That's a real dangerous thing for people to really consider.
Yeah. All right. Last comments. Skinny Boy 20 Boy says, shout out to Information Man.
Thank you, brother.
Gravity X says, great show. Thank you for all the super chats there. Okay, and Mr. Controversy says, sup, Lennon, you looking like a
What they saying?
He said, I'm looking like a sugar daddy. Yeah, because I went and I got a new shirt just for this, because it's Information Man. I said, let me go get me a new shirt.
Hey, thanks a lot, brother.
Yeah, forgiving is why Pookie and Ray Ray can't get.
Let me shout out a couple of people that sent me some cash apps here. We got Monica, who I know very well. Thank you, sister. She gave me a $10 super chat. And then we got Hightower, who sent me another super chat, this time $50, which I really appreciate. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone who sent in the cash apps to Information Man. If you're watching this at a later time, I'm sure it's going to get a whole lot of views. And you're so inclined and you have the means, please support the brother as an act of appreciation for him coming on and spending this 2 hours and 30 minutes with us. Fascinating information. A lot of what you're saying, I haven't even thought about. But you're the professional. You're the expert. And I'm very appreciative of you taking the time to share your knowledge and wisdom with us. I also want to say, and I said it twice already, but I'm going to say it again. There's a few people, a handful of brothers that I've looked up to here on YouTube. And you're one of those brothers. And I want to just express my appreciation for you. We all struggle. Some of us are still struggling.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes as Black men, we don't have enough of, I guess you can say, of a brotherhood to see other people who are doing better and we can be inspired by. But I can say honestly and sincerely that you've been one of those people that I've been able to look up to. So I want to thank you so much for being you. Yep.
Let me say this too. I would say that Black men out there definitely, stay on top of your health, especially your mental health as well, because I find that a lot of Black men, a lot of us are dying in silence without any, sometimes we withdraw. We feel like, it's a sign of weakness if we express some of the things that we have fears about. And keeping with Umar, I think Umar is also a victim of this too.
Yeah.
His ego is so powerful that he's trying to overmask the fact that he's really a very sad man deep in the core. That's just my observation.
Yeah, I totally agree.
But I thank you for letting me come up and speak on this issue, being one of the first of this series that you've started. I appreciate that.
Oh, man, my pleasure. Final things here. I do have a poll up. If you guys have not voted, please do so now before I end the poll. We had 1,277 votes so far.
Wow.
And the question is, this got a lot of views, bro. Watch, you'll see. I'm telling you. It says, are you a former Umar Johnson supporter? And I'm amazed to see 25% of the people who voted are former Umar Johnson supporters. So what that shows is that, there's a significant percentage of people who used to support Umar, but they realized, like you have and many other former supporters, that there were things that weren't right, and they've made a decision to back off of their support of Umar Johnson. Fascinating.
Right. That is fascinating. And let me say respect to brother, I believe the last name I can make out is Controversy, who sent me a $6 Cash App as well. Thank you, brother, for doing so. And thank you, everybody, for supporting the channel. I think in some ways this is good therapy for all of us, because in those folks in the chat room, we have all been sort of psychologically, or should I say emotionally, victims of Umar psychologically. Because why? We all at one point believed.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say that we are victims of this belief of Umar, and some of us to the point that we defended him to arguing with people who were actually telling us the truth. So,
yeah. Where can people find you, brother? What social media, everything?
Yeah, I'm all over social media. If you put the name Information Man in there, you'll see me over. So you got me on Information Man Show. Okay, that's on YouTube. I've got Information Man Speaks podcast, which is radio style podcast on all the podcasting platforms like your Spotify's and your Spreaker and all of that. Then I've got what do I got? I got the Info Media Reacts. Please subscribe to that channel because I revamped Info Media React. When you go to my first channel and you scroll down, you'll see that second channel. If you want to go over there and subscribe to that channel as well, it's different from the first channel. Then I've got the Prime Sports Media channel. That channel's doing very well. And I do some radio style podcasting as well. I'm on Facebook. If you want to follow the Information Man Show on Facebook, you can just pull up Information Man and you'll find me on Facebook. You'll find me on what used to be called Twitter, which is X. You can find me on X under Information Man Show. You can find me under Instagram as Information Man Show as well, if you want to follow me on Instagram as well. And when you go to my channel, you can click into my links. I put all the links to everything that I'm associated with on the first channel. So you can click into all the different links in the descriptions of videos and what have you. And that's how I do it. But I want people to definitely subscribe to the first channel if you like. And I also have to be honest, check out the second channel, Info Media Reacts, because I react to various videos and various topics. That channel was dormant for a very long time, and now it's popping off because I'm doing a lot of polarizing topics over there, analyzing videos, talking about pop culture, social media, anything over there. And I'm getting some really good views and really good engagement on that channel. So you definitely want to check that out because I'll be going live on that channel or uploads more so than the Information Man Show, which I primarily just go live on that channel on Sundays. Okay. So I really appreciate everybody in the chat room who's come over. I appreciate your audience and any support that I get from everybody here. Because we can only grow from there. And once again, honors you doing a great job, brother, bringing this to the forefront of people who need to know the truth. I need to ask you this question. Are you working or are you still working on the second installment to the Shockmentary?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you something. People were emailing me today because there's a young brother that did an excellent piece on Umar. I can't remember his name right now. I wish I'd had it so I can tell people. I try not to promote people these days. That's my policy. But there's because I've been through a lot with that.
Yes.
But there was something about it. It's an excellent piece, and there was something about it that I had just a bit of a flame to say. Why don't you go ahead and go back and start working on? I started the Shockmentary Part 2 right before this show started. I went and I found the project, the Premiere Pro project file of the Shockmentary 2, and I had it up on my computer. And for you to mention it now, maybe that's I don't know, the universe's way of saying that it's time.
Yeah, because there's so many. Oh, let me ask you this before we end. We know that Umar got booted off of some major social media sites, and then he went dormant for a moment, which, it hurts the money that he has coming in. And then all of a sudden, we didn't see him in Delaware. What do you think, given all these circumstances, what do you think this is all going to lead to eventually?
Well, I think with Umar, as long as he can get money out of people for whatever he's peddling, it can be a book or his Shockmentary. His book doesn't have any source material whatsoever. It's not peer reviewed, or the idea of opening up a school, he's going to keep running with it. But I did show some documents recently that showed that for the fiscal year of 2022, Umar, he reported to the IRS that he didn't collect any money. And in my mind, what is going to end up happening with Umar is at some point, the IRS is going to come knocking. And when that happens, that's when it's all going to hit the fan. I think him being banned off of social media has more to do. He's back on now, but I think it has more to do with all of the snow bunny race baiting stuff. And, you shouldn't date outside your race. Because see, if it was a white person saying those types of things, as a white person, you shouldn't date outside your race, you shouldn't deal with black people and that kind of stuff, they will be chastised as racist. And platforms, if they're big enough, like Umar is, platforms, they're not going to have that. So I think that's one of the issues with Umar. All of that's going to inevitably catch up with him, inevitably.
Right. A lot of these YouTube, I'm not going to name any names here, drop any names, but you'll know what I'm talking about. YouTube, over the last couple of years, they've been cleaning shop with certain individuals who talk about men and individuals that talk about women, black women in particular, and black men like a dog. So, and because these platforms are getting more and more corporate and they want to make money and they want content that they feel is viable, that doesn't violate the terms of agreement. And if you're doing that, if you're on there like he does on Facebook and what have you, they're going to get you.
No.
So, before we end, let me bring this up. I had not a debate, but a discussion with someone like this. And that is, if there were no social media, would Umar be able to do what he did to the black community. And I think I had said, well, maybe he wouldn't be able to because that's the tool he used. But I had people tell me, no, I believe he still would, because there was a time before social media where you still had slicksters that would still slick black people out of money, right? They would go to halls or whatever. But this is the difference, though, I think. If Umar had no social media and he had to get his money from people by doing speaking engagements or doing, to me, I would think it would be easier for people to reach out and touch him and say, give my damn money. But then the person I was talking to was saying, well, no, because you would still see people doing that now because he does go out and talk. That's true. So I just wonder, social media has given him quicker access to getting money. But if he was back in the early 80s or 70s, would he be as effective under this time frame in those time frames? What do you think?
Well, I look at it in reverse. Let's say if we look at someone like Malcolm, or we look at someone like Martin Luther King, they did what they did without social media.
That's true.
And now, can you imagine what they would have been able to accomplish with social media?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You see, but the other thing is that what they did off of social media, because it didn't exist, it was grassroots and it was real and it was tangible. They were doing real work. They were, like you were saying, they're changing public policy. They're really impacting the world on a global level. That's not what Umar's doing.
No.
What Umar's doing, what Umar is doing is he uses social media to run his mouth. There's nothing tangible or real in terms of what he's doing. So in my mind, if he didn't have social media, he would have to be in a position where he's actually doing real work. And he doesn't have the drive for that. He doesn't have the motivation for that. He doesn't have the discipline for that. He doesn't have the organization skills to do any of that. He would probably be able to pull off events where he's speaking, but outside of that organizing, it just wouldn't happen. There's no way. He doesn't have that capacity.
Well, he does have the gift of gab, which definitely attracts our community, but you're absolutely right about that. Look, it's the year 2024. Let's just do this. Let's say this. Right now, it's the year 2024, and we know he's moved the date of the school opening up to what, 2025?
August of 2025.
Okay. How much longer can Umar Johnson get a run over these next 3 to 4 years? It's getting ridiculous now. Can he run this same scam into 2026, 27, 28 to 2030? I'll be a 60-year-old man.
Yeah, he could do it, though. He can do it. Yeah, the strategy for him is it's a revolving door. Let me bring who I can to get money out of, who are not, they don't know the history. They don't know the timeline. A lot of people don't know about St. Paul's. A lot of people don't know about the UNIA. And so he brings a new crop of people. He uses and abuses. He gets as much out of them as they possible. Then he moves on to the next. That's why, if you guys look at Umar Johnson videos, go back in 2019, look at the people who are around him, and then look in 2024, they're not around anymore. See, so what he does is he cycles through people. Polite did the same thing. Jay Morrison is attempting to do the same thing, and it goes on and on and on.
However, it goes back to what you said before about accountability. If we're not keeping him accountable, or the bigger platforms are not keeping him accountable, then he can keep running this scam on the next generations who get introduced to him for the first time because he's on the Breakfast Club, for example.
Yeah.
And they like the Breakfast Club, right? Another thing that Umar did that was dumb is he often likes to say things about certain black celebrities or athletes who he would need money from. So why would you start talking about LeBron James when at the same time you want LeBron James to cut a check for you? Why the hell would LeBron James cut a check for you when he hears through the grapevine you're making videos about who his son is dating, which is none of your business? You can have an opinion about it, but to do a video about it while at the same time saying, why is LeBron not cutting me a check? Dude, you just talked about his son.
Yeah.
Why? It's not the same as someone else who's talking about his son or something, but they're not asking for anything from him. But you're asking for something from him of a financial support, but then you want to talk about him. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's gone after Beyonce, but then I've heard him say, Jay-Z, when you going to send a check?
Why would Jay-Z send him a check? Yeah, right. Why would Jay-Z, you know, it's just foolishness, and it's a sad commentary. I'm going to say this. I hope that this man is not able to continue this scam all the way into the 2030s. If he does that, that means he's been doing it for 2 decades, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, he's at 19 years now.
Oh, my God.
He conceptualized FDMG in 2005. I can play the video. Yeah.
Right, 5. We'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
but I appreciate you letting me come on and us having this most important conversation, I think. Very important. And I hope that everyone else that you bring on that has their point of view as it relates to Umar, that will add to this series that what you're doing. I think this is good. This is good therapy. This is good conversation. And it also allows people that are watching to be exposed to information that they didn't know anything about.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you again, brother, for your time. I appreciate it. Much love to you. And again, keep doing what you're doing, brother. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, brother. I'm gonna get ready to get out of here. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Thank you for having me on. This was great. Today I felt very comfortable. The audience has been great. Thank you all for the support, the Cash Apps support. So keep supporting Brother Honor. He's giving you the truth. He's telling you the truth about this man. Okay?
Tell the truth.
The truth. And he's got the receipts for any of the haters out there. This man's got the receipts.
Yeah.
He can back up everything that he's saying with receipts.
Yeah.
So everybody have a great rest of your week into the weekend. And I'll see you soon. And thank you, brother. I'll give a clap to you for letting me come up.
You're so welcome.
To everybody in the chat. And until next time, everybody, peace and respect to you. Thank you, Honest. Take care, brother.
Oh, man, my pleasure. Take care, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
All right, there you have it. Information Man. What an awesome show. His Cash App, by the way, is $informationman06. $informationman06. So if anyone watches this live stream, let's say after it's been archived here on YouTube and you're willing and able, please support the brother. He did a fantastic job. And I'm so thankful that he took the time to be with us here today. All of his social media links are listed in the description of this video. If you look inside the description box below, and if you want to subscribe, I would encourage you to subscribe to his YouTube page. He's all over the place. Okay, so please, if you guys enjoyed the conversation here today, head on over to Information Man and all of his different social media sites, and whichever one you would like to, go ahead and subscribe. Okay. Real quick, Mixtrix Monica says, thanks to you both. Have a good 4th. Yeah, to everyone, happy 4th of July. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks, Mixtrix Monica, for the super chat as well. And then Mr. Controversy says, nah, we are victims of the belief that our skin is our kin. Yeah, that's one of the ways that Umar has been able to perpetuate this scam. And it's not just a school scam. I'll talk about other things that he's doing that they're just not ethical. They're not moral either. And it just goes to show you what type of character he has. And the truth is that as Black people, you know, we tend to embrace each other on certain levels, but just because someone has a similar skin complexion or skin tone, it doesn't necessarily mean they have your best interests at heart. Make sense? So that you right on that, Mr. Controversy. All right, thanks everyone for tuning on in. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. The final tallies for the poll. I asked the question: were you a former supporter of Umar Johnson? 25% of the people, we had over 1,000 voters, 25% said that they used to be a supporter of Umar. That's significant. And then, of course, 75% said no. All right. So I want to thank everyone for tuning on in. And also thanks for being here and sending, for those who did, sending Cash Apps to Information Man. I really do appreciate that. And Big Man, how's it going, man? Says Umar's first mistake was making a commercial wearing We had a great show. Why? Why do you have to? All right. We're going to leave it at that. Thank you all so much for tuning on in. I'll talk with y'all very soon. Okay. Take care. Peace. Wow.